welcome to this year's Big Pitch event. It marks the start of the 9th cohort, the 9th, of the fabulous Clinical Entrepreneur Programme, an NHS workforce development programme that began all the way back in 2016. It supported over 1,300 entrepreneurs to date, with more than 200 in the latest cohort. The Clinical Entrepreneur Programme now partners with all the home nations and the Republic of Ireland. There's a patient cohort, and they're now working with the Alzheimer's Society on a programme for dementia innovators. So everyone has come together for the very first time. All those people who support innovation right across the system have come together for this fabulous event. Now, my name's Vivienne Parry. I'm a science writer and broadcaster, an enthusiast to my bones. And I've been a cheerleader for this programme since its inception in 2016. So what are we going to do today? Of course, we're going to be showcasing the work of clinical entrepreneurs. For sure, we're going to be highlighting the future of healthcare. But we're also going to be celebrating. A lot of celebrating going to be done today, and strengthening the partnerships and collaborations that are absolutely critical to making health innovation happen. And the other thing, of course, is that Big Pitch is the most brilliant place for networking ever. This is the largest Big Pitch ever. I don't want to frighten everybody, but it's going to be the Albert Hall next. We've got 1,100 people here today. We've even got people up in the cheap seats. Hello! And we've got 100 innovator and clinical entrepreneur program partner stands. So let's say hello to all of you. Clinical entrepreneurs and their mentors, put up your hands. Hey! Innovators and teams from partner programs like the Health Innovation Network, NHS Innovation Accelerator, Insights, SBRI, NIHR, put your hands up. They weren't very enthusiastic. Just put your hands up. You're fab. We love having you with us. Industry. Who's here from industry? Yes. Who are the money men? Maybe you don't want to put your hands up quite so hard. And friends of the programme, you all know who you are. So let me tell you a bit about how today is going to work. Our clinical entrepreneurs have already had some sessions. They've met their mentors, and you've had some lunch, I hope. Now we're going to have some panel sessions highlighting future trends and advances in healthcare, and importantly, focusing on how to facilitate and encourage innovation. We'll then have a break so that you have the opportunity to see all the stands and have conversations with entrepreneurs. And then we're going to come back for a conversation with some patients so you can see the impact that entrepreneurs are already having. And then to the main event, the Big Pitch. It's fast, it's furious, it's fabulous, and it's always, with apologies to all our other panelists and speakers, the best bit. And just one small warning. So first of all, about the heat. If you are wearing a jacket, for goodness sake, take it off. Provided you've got something presentable underneath, just take it off. Ties, chuck them out. It is meltingly hot. There is no air conditioning in this building. There are fans. They are struggling. Fan away is what I say. The other thing that I should warn you, so we've got a hugely ambitious programme today. It's got a cast of thousands, more moving parts than a Swiss watch. Obviously, those of you who know me will know that I am 90% Mary Poppins. But the 10% of me that is Margaret Thatcher with her handbag will emerge from time to time. So don't take me being bossy personally. It's just me trying to make all of this run like a Swiss watch. So are you all ready? Yes. Are you sitting comfortably? Yes. Are you too hot? Yes. Yes. Let's begin. And so, where better to start than with Professor Sir Stephen Powis, NHS National Medical Director.
Right, thank you, Vivian. Okay, let's get going then, shall we? So, jacket off, tie off, I think is what you said. Does this count? It's about a minute, yeah. You did say stop there, didn't you? All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to Central Hall, Westminster, biggest venue so far, to give yet another keynote, Tony, at the Big Pitch event. And you all know that the event celebrates the remarkable achievements of our clinical entrepreneurs, but today we've expanded that, so there are many, many more of you in the room that haven't necessarily been at previous Big Pitches. I don't need to remind you the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme is the world's first and largest national workforce development programme for those in healthcare who want to solve the challenges that healthcare is facing. And I'm delighted that the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme is welcoming its 9th cohort of entrepreneurs today, its 2nd cohort of patient entrepreneurs, its 4th cohort of venture studio from crisis entrepreneurs, and its 1st cohort of dementia innovators. So, a warm welcome to everybody, particularly the 1st cohort of dementia innovators, and it's an exciting programme delivered in partnership with the Alzheimer's Society. Fiona is waving to me there, ex of NHS. Nice to see you again, Fiona. Saw you were in the news today. But really great to have the Alzheimer's Society and our dementia innovators on board, supporting individuals and innovations for individuals from the point of diagnosis of dementia to end-of-life care. So today's event, as I said, the biggest ever celebration of innovation and entrepreneurship in the NHS. 1,300 people, I was told as I came through the door, and then Tony said 1,400. So that was 100 in only 2 minutes. So by and large, by far the biggest event we've had. And we're partnering this year with National Institute of Health Research. Lucy's here at the front row, the National Innovation Accelerator that I have the privilege of chairing, and Chris from UCLP, who hosts the NIA, is in the front row. We have SBRI Healthcare and Health Innovation Networks, a lot of work with the HINs. And of course, partnership and collaboration are really vital to all the work that you do and that we do to deliver innovative solutions that we need in healthcare. In his review of innovation, the innovation ecosystem last year, Roland Sinker from Cambridge, who we commissioned to do the work, stated that to seize the opportunities offered by data-driven technology in the NHS, scientists, industry and innovators must really focus on those strong and effective partnerships. It's those partnerships that generate the best in innovation and the best in adoption. And by doing that, we should enable the NHS to meet future healthcare needs through testing, adoption and scaling of innovations for both patients and staff. So over the years, I've had the privilege to be involved with the growing community of innovators and entrepreneurs. And of course, at the center of this community is that spirit of co-production and collaboration between patients and clinicians. People's lived experience of using healthcare is absolutely vital to help develop innovations and to transform healthcare that we know needs to be transformed for both patients and staff. And it's really inspiring to hear about the work of the clinical entrepreneurs, their energy, their creativity, and the extraordinary impact that the programme has made. So we love our stats at NHS England. Never give a speech without some numbers in it. And I have some numbers for you today, and they tell a really impressive story. 1,314 clinical entrepreneurs have participated in the programme in the last 8 years, with another 223 entrepreneurs joining the programme for cohort 9. 686, the number of innovations that have been created and supported in 2024-25 alone. And in the same year, the same period, there were over 3,523, that's a very precise number to be over, occurrences of organisations adopting clinical entrepreneur innovations. A total of 394 NHS employees have returned or been retained by the NHS, over the last 8 years, with 61 retained in 24-25. And for those mentors in the room, 5,719 hours of mentoring has been delivered in the programme in 2024-25, with over 34,896 hours, somebody is really counting, delivered over the last 8 years. And we've awarded 66,911 CPD points to clinical entrepreneurs, with over 13,000 being awarded alone in the last year. As well as the clear benefits for patients and staff, it's great to see the impact of the programme on the UK economy. 1.134 billion of public and private sector funding has been raised over the last years for nominal amounts, and 162.9, so nearly 163 million raised in 24-25. And clinical entrepreneurs, we reckon, have created 3,887 jobs, very exact number, in the last 8 years, with 481 jobs created in 24-25. And 87 startups created in 24-25, 592 created over the course of the last 8 years. Now, here in my speech it says, note to self from my team, add personal reflections. This is the opportunity to go off-piste. So I will add some personal reflections, and probably 3. So firstly, it's been a real pleasure giving the keynote speeches, I think every year that we've had a big pitch since I started. I don't know, Tony, whether that's because you trust me or because you haven't been able to think or get anybody else. But thank you for asking me once again. I delivered the first of these on the 31st of July 2018 in Bloomberg's new headquarters in the city. Some of you might have been to Bloomberg's new headquarters in the city. It's not so new now, but just as sparkling and spanky from the outside as they were. And Tony I was a little bit surprised when, during that keynote, I produced a pack of sausages. And so I thought I would produce a pack of sausages today. These are M&S sausages. Other brands are available. These are not the same sausages, you'll be glad to hear, that I produced 7 years ago, but nevertheless, it is a 2 for £6.50. I only bought one. And I also produced a blank sheet of paper, a bit easier, from NHS England has donated a blank sheet of paper. And the reason I did that was because in that keynote, I wanted to say something about what it took to be an innovator and entrepreneur. And the point I was making was innovators and entrepreneurs are people who see solutions that others don't. And they can take something, perhaps an everyday item, an everyday thought, and they can see it in a different light and translate it into something else. And the 2 examples that I was giving was sausage skin. So Wilhelm Kolff in the 1940s invented dialysis. I gave that example because I'm a kidney doctor, as many of you know. So the father of dialysis, used sausage skins as dialysis membranes. So he took an everyday item, sausage skins, adapted it to for use in healthcare. A great example of taking something that's used for one thing, thinking differently and using it for something else. And of course, René Laennec, who was the inventor of the stethoscope, invented it because he took a piece of paper. And rather tired of putting ears to chests to try and hear the heart, he worked out that if you amplify the sounds by rolling up a piece of paper and placing it on the chest and listening, it's easier. And that was the birth of what became the stethoscope. So using everyday items, seeing solutions that others can't see is a real core component. It's not the only skill that required to innovate. Resilience is another one that I've talked about at times. The ability to fail. If you don't fail, you're not going to learn, and innovation is often about failing and then learning again and succeeding. And every year I've tried to highlight another example. Last year I talked about the Infinite Library, I think, at the Geographical Society last time, wasn't it? Was that right? Yeah. But this year, onto my second reflection, and I've touched on this already, what I've seen over the last 8 years is a real broadening of the programme. And I think one of the best things that we have done is to move it away just from doctors, to be honest, into a wider group of clinicians, and then into patients, and then into others. And I really want to play credit to Tony and the programme for that foresight to see that this is absolutely about that wider collaboration. It's getting people in not just from healthcare background, but from lived experience background. And I think that has been the development in the scheme that I think has been pretty much the most impactful in my eyes. But the third reflection I wanted to make is the thing that I hear most from entrepreneurs and innovators, whether it's at the NIA, whether it's in the entrepreneurs. Whenever I talk to people, it usually comes back to a single complaint, which is the difficulty of selling things into the NHS. I was at NHS Confed last week, and one of the innovators, one of the entrepreneurs, grabbed me and told me exactly the same thing about how they are thinking about moving to the States because it's easier to get their products into healthcare there. Now, I'm not daft. Business is competitive, and it's the job of any small business or large business to have the ability to sell. Markets are competitive, and there are always competing products, and if there aren't, there will be soon. And that's part of living as an entrepreneur and an innovator. And I'm also quite clear that the grass is never completely green elsewhere. Last January, I was at Arab Health in Dubai, and I chaired a session with innovators from the UK, pitching to the local healthcare communities. And one of our innovators stood up and said, "What advice would you give me as an innovator coming into Dubai?" And one of the local chief medical officers stood up and he said, "Well, the first thing not to assume is just because you sold it to one organization, you can walk down the road and sell it to the next. You will have to go through that process of making your case again." So, yes, things might be easier, but the grass is never as green as it might seem somewhere else. But having said that, I do think we need to do better. I think we do and can do better in the NHS to help you get your products into NHS organisations. And I think there are solutions to the challenges you have. I'll give you one example, which comes from medicines. I think we have a really good pipeline of understanding of processes to take new medicines, regulate them, assess their clinical effectiveness, and procure them. It's really clear in medicines what the evidence base needs to be. Everybody's familiar with the sort of evidence base that needs to be generated. The MHRA does its job. NICE assesses the clinical effectiveness. And then, when required, NHS England procures nationally once and gets good prices because it's procuring for a population of 60 million. Now, the things that innovators work on are not just drugs. And devices, pathways, kit, digital are different from drugs, and their product cycles tend to be an awful lot faster and quicker. But nevertheless, I think there are principles and things that we can pull from what we do with drugs and ask the question, how can we translate that? For instance, national procurement for some products, clearly not for all. Now, we've made some tentative steps with NICE to work out how we can do that, but I think we need to think about how we can go further and faster. So I will leave that thought with you, but I recognise that that has been and remains the biggest moan, complaint, challenge that I hear from entrepreneurs. I think we will be able to do better. I know there's a lot of energy in this space, and I would implore you all to work collectively on this, because I think it's something that actually needs a collective fix rather than just relying on government, profession, NHS England, NIHR, NICE. We need to think about this together. And we're always changing. We're going through a period of significant change at the moment that gives risks, challenges, but also opportunities. But it won't change the central case for innovation in the NHS. We will still, as the NHS has always required, we will need to innovate to progress and to improve healthcare and the health of our nation. So we have to continue to innovate for the needs of the new generation. We've got an increasingly older population. We need to innovate to support the population as it will be in the next 10 or 20 years rather than what it's been in the last 50 years. And the 10-year health plan, which we expect to be published shortly, I'm sure will set out some of the ways in which we deliver that NHS fit for the future, encompassing the 3 shifts that you've all heard about, and I'm sure you're working on: hospital to community, analog to digital, and sickness to prevention. And the aim will be to create a truly modern health service designed to meet the changes, the changing needs of our changing population. And innovation, I'm sure, will be central to that. So fantastic to see the wide range of innovation. I usually give 1 or 2 shout-outs. Lots of innovations for those that have been in the room have been flashing on the screen. I want to call out today AI-driven 3D heart scans, HeartFlow, a technology that enables doctors to diagnose and treat patients with suspected heart disease much faster by turning a CT scan of their heart into a personalized 3D image, which is then analyzed using artificial intelligence. And previously, patients suspected of having coronary heart disease would need to undergo a CT scan, and if there's blockage, narrowing of the coronary artery, many would need an angiogram to confirm the diagnosis. That involves a catheter inserted into a blood vessel, having dye injected, so not straightforward for the patient, and obviously always a bit of risk. But the new technology uses specialist analysis of the CT scan of the heart to create that personalized 3D model of the patient's coronary arteries, and that assessment of the extent and location of blockages can then be interpreted by a cardiologist. And a nationwide study, this is back to the evidence base funded by the MRC, underpinned this, and for 2021, NHS England, working with Health Innovation Networks, rolled out the technology through the MedTech Funding Mandate Programme, which aims to ensure patients in the NHS benefit from clinically effective and cost-saving medical innovations. Available in 56 hospitals in England, and data shows that 24,300 patients so far benefited from the technology that was rolled out in 2021, and that's enabled patients to avoid invasive procedures and has saved the NHS just under £10 million. So NHS England will continue to support innovation, whether it's through the Accelerated Access Collaborative, whether it's through the NIA, which I've talked about, whether it's through SBRI, and of course it's through the Clinical Entrepreneurs Programme. So we established the NHS Innovation Service to support innovators and demonstrate the value of the product, and we will continue to think how we can support you. So our strong support for the Clinical Entrepreneurs Programme will continue. We support and applaud the fantastic work that you're celebrating here today. Please have a great day. I'm clearly being given the time to take your jacket and tie and leave, but I am at the end of the speech. So hopefully from me, it's goodbye for now, not goodbye for good, but I'll be keeping a close watchful eye on how you get on. And Tony, do use me if you need me. Thank you very much.
And Steve, don't run away, because one of the things that I wanted to say to you, and I was not just coming up here to give you a handbagging, I was also coming up to say, you have been so important to the Clinical Entrepreneurs Programme. You've given your support unstintingly over the last 8 years. And for that, all of us, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And please take your sausages with you. Thank you very much. So while our next panel
Whoever
comes
gives
up...
the best big pitch can have the sausages.
Yeah, come on, off you get. Off you go, take your sausages.
Sorry,
right.
vegetarian ones are available too.
Okay, so we now move to the first of our panels. And as Sir Stephen has already said, there is an awful lot going on in healthcare at the moment. The NHS is being reorganised again. The 10-year health plan is set to be published in July, but the 3 main shifts, from hospital to community, from disease to prevention, and analogue to digital, have already been well established as seismic shifts for the future. Also, a big focus on health inequalities and patient experience. And economic growth is also at the heart of the government's mission, and the 3-year spending review announced last week had major new funding for technology and transformation in the NHS. So we have our first panel. Hello. We have 4 senior government and NHS leaders. Each of them, in their different ways, are responsible for developing and delivering policy in the translational research, innovation and entrepreneurship space, all of whom have the ultimate goal of improving patient care and experience. Now, this is the big pitch. So, of course, my panel is not allowed to get away without pitching themselves. So I've asked each of them to prepare a 30-second pitch saying who they are and what it is they do. Lucy Chappell.
Thank you very much. bit of technology would be good. Thank you. I'm Lucy Chappell. I'm Chief Scientific Advisor at the Department of Health and Social Care, Chief Executive of the National Institute for Health and Care Research, so with an R&D budget that was settled last week. I'm a Professor of Obstetrics. I do clinical trials in pregnancy and a consultant obstetrician in the NHS. My pitch is to say that research and innovation, they provide the treatments of today and the hope for better health and growth of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Stella Vig.
Thank you. Oh, it's very loud. I'm Stella Vig. I'm a vascular general surgeon down in Croydon. Feel I do that less and less as time goes on. And in NHS England, I'm the National Medical Director for Quality and Clinical Effectiveness, and Megan is, Steve's deputy, and now Megan is deputy for secondary care. But I'm also the National Clinical Director for Elective Recovery. And so my request of all of you is you are the best disruptors in the world. We need you now more than ever, and I'm very much looking forward to working with you.
David Lawson.
Thank you. So my role is MedTech Director at Department of Health and Social Care. I describe myself as a plumber because one of the challenges that we're trying to do is to do better at adoption. And so what my kind of pitch today is to, as Stephen has said, is for us to work together as a collective to do better. We're great at innovation. There's a huge amount of innovation in this room. What we need to do is to be more effective and more systematic at adoption and upscale in the NHS.
Ros Campion.
Hi, I'm Ros Campion. I run the Office for Life Sciences in the British Government, responsible for making life sciences thrive in the UK. And my ask rather than pitch is we only do this together. So my pitch stroke ask is one of collaboration, something that I've seen sort of being at the heart of where we've succeeded so far.
So let me ask you some, I'm now going to interrogate you all on your behalf. The Prime Minister said to help transform the NHS, he's going to throw the full weight of the British government behind our world-leading life science industry. Today in this audience, we've got hundreds of early-stage British life science companies. So wave if you're one of those. Lots. So could you share the top 2 things that you're proudest of achieving that help make innovation from the life science sector transform the NHS? Ros.
I thought we may as well use 2 microphones, advances in technology. So this was a great question. I really enjoyed thinking about it. My 2 things are, first, I'm really proud of the work that the Health Innovation Networks have done over the course of the last year or so, or a couple of years, to really sort of bridge the sort of gap from entrepreneurship into the NHS. My example is the work on cerebral palsy, where the work of the HINS has made sure that every single maternity unit in England, so all 152 of them, now offer magnesium sulfate to mothers in preterm labour. It costs £1 per pregnancy, but it's reduced rates of cerebral palsy by 30%. So that is 463 babies who haven't got cerebral palsy. That is more than £463 million saved for the NHS. So that's thing 1 that I'm super proud of. And thing 2 is a collaboration that the UK government has forged with BioNTech. You'll know them as the company who collaborated with Pfizer during COVID. But over the course of the last few years, we have stitched together the totality of our health system to give a unique offer to BioNTech, which has brought cancer vaccine trials to the UK. That's been lots of collaboration with people in this room, with Lucy and with others. And this means that the UK is really now the place to do cancer vaccine trials. So those are my 2.
Fantastic. How about you?
So for me, the first one is what's called IDAP, which is the Innovative Devices Access Pathway. And this is where, for the first time, MHRA, NICE, and NHS England have worked collectively together to first select and then support novel technology that meets an unmet need. So we just, earlier this year, completed the first cohort of 8 technologies, and we're now beginning to see the kind of first green shoots of some of those technologies being adopted by the NHS, patients in the NHS being able to access novel technology years ahead of health systems in Europe. And I think it's that collective message, again, around different parts of the health system working in a real collaborative partnership way to kind of accelerate innovation. The second example I'd give is around sustainability. So as part of the MedTech strategy, we have a program called Design for Life, which is about supporting a circular economy. And again, that's another great example of collaboration, not just across the NHS, within the NHS in terms of clinical teams, commercial procurement teams, but also with industry and also with academia. One of the particular initiatives at the moment is called Project Phoenix, and this is being led by a MedTech SME in Derby, where they're working with the prison service. And one of the projects we're doing is to actually have a clean room in a closed prison where they're going to manufacture and reprocess medical devices. So from a sustainability perspective and resilience perspective, it's a great story. But also it shows the power of SMEs and medtech in terms of social mobility and the value that they can give in their local place and community.
Thank you. I mean, Stella, in secondary care, I mean, I've already seen in the exhibition a mass of things, but what are the things you're most proud of?
Thank you. I think there are two things for me, and they're process. So NHS England, strategy, policy, and we can fund. And although it feels like the NHS is one of the biggest and most difficult areas to go into, it's because we're not really a national health service. We're lots and lots of businesses in primary care, and even in secondary care, the adoption of technology is very isolated and individualized, and often based on clinical champions. And many of you in the room who are our champions are there because you found an itch, you want to solve it, and you have. And now we need to work through how we adopt it. So there are two things for me that I think we're really proud of. One is, Steve's already told you the investment and the opportunity that's gone in through NHS England. But we've had two areas of disruption. You know, we've had COVID, and then we've got COVID recovery and the financial restraints that we have. That means we have to be flexible and do things differently. And I think my one ask of all of you is don't ask for permission everywhere. I know we're waiting for the 10-year plan. Wait for the 10-year plan. It'll give you an umbrella, but don't wait for the 10-year plan, because there are things that we need to do now. So that's number one, is I think the flexibility that we're starting to produce. The second is process in terms of frameworks. So patient expectation, professional expectation is very, very different if we think back to 2019 and now. If you look at the elective reform plan, patients are at the center of what we do. But the framework gives you permission, as long as quality, patient experience and patient outcomes are at the center of what you do. If there's technology or process that we can change and adopt, we will find a space for it. And we will battle for you, with you, if the appropriate tech comes through. So please keep working with us.
So people forget the NHS has got one front door and about 2,000 doors behind that. Lucy.
Thanks very much. So you asked about achievements, and the first I want to call out, which really resonates with the theme of team working, is resetting the clinical research ecosystem after COVID. We saw what COVID could deliver, but it was what came next. We needed to use every single lever we had, and we were working with really quite a tired workforce, so it wasn't all easy. And we were asking to deliver research against all the areas that had been paused. But we did it, going from 27% of studies running to time and target to now a sustained over 80%, currently sitting at 84%. And the reason I've chosen that is that's because it's really relevant to what we're trying to do today. We're trying to tackle the really quite deeply ingrained system processes that are really hampering our agile study setup times. And that's what we are asking for everyone's help in really tackling. Lots of system, but also people who are in this room today. The second that I've chosen is how NHR delivers across its, what we call our 4 I's: impact, inclusion, innovation, and investment. And I could have picked any of those 4, but I'm going to pick inclusion because I want this audience to really think what that means. And it's about how would you choose to develop your intervention in a really representative population, because the UK is a destination because of our diverse population. And in fact, this week's big announcement about Be Part of Research linking to clinical trials really talks to why that matters. How can we reach our population for good? And that's what will make us, again, really competitive on a global stage, and we hear that time and time again. When it doesn't work in a certain subgroup, that is what tells you, that's what really tells you new information that allows you to go back round a circle and develop it so that it gets better and so that it makes your innovation really credible on a global stage. So I think there's much more that all of us in this room can do about thinking about the representativeness and our inclusion approach.
Fantastic. Now, I'm going to be really mean to you all, because I'm going to ask you to say really quickly, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to innovators and entrepreneurs in the NHS? Lucy, I'm going to start with you.
I would say think about the end user at the start of your journey. So that end user is firstly patient and the public, but it also might be a policy maker, a guideline writer, a service commissioner. Go and talk to them right at the start.
Yeah, doing it afterwards never looks good. Stella.
I think align yourselves, get a win-win. Align yourselves to the policies that really matter at the moment. So what keeps me up in bed at night? 6.3 million people needing treatment. We've got to get them to the treatment point more rapidly and actually support health inequality. So how do you use your technology to solve the outpatient problem, theatre productivity, and joining us up so we become a healthcare community rather than primary care, secondary care, and all the other bits that are really important.
So I would say that you've all got, brilliant innovations, but remember that to succeed, it's a team sport. And I guess the message for me is you use this program as your team. Use the ability to find champions, advice, guidance. Use the network from the Entrepreneurs Program to create your team, because it is very much a team sport to really succeed.
Very much feels like teaching my grandmother to suck eggs in giving you advice, but my advice builds on David's, I think, which is collaborate early and collaborate often. The best work that I've seen done is where we've seen collaboration sort of starting from the very beginning, where what is being developed is done with the user rather than to the user, and it is also the easiest way to get through resistance. But to be honest, I am very convinced that all of you know that better than I do.
And finally, I'm just going to ask Stella, we often think of, we're all always in perpetual crisis mode, but actually at the moment, there are probably more opportunities to innovate than there ever have been, and more necessity, particularly in your field.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And I think the conversation about collaboration is not just, with patients and professionals, but it's actually collaboration amongst yourselves. Because if you look at outpatients, we do 100 million outpatient appointments a year. 2 million people use 32 million outpatient appointments. Can you imagine if we had the technology to support those individuals so they had one conversation, one team, one solution, and then we wrap around care amongst them? You won't be able to do that individually, but collaboratively, the benefit of we can do that. So I think, yes, absolutely. And funding, the efficiencies and productivity that we need, we can only do that if we collaborate well.
Let's close with you, Lucy.
So the time to innovate is now. If we always do what we've always done, we know that we're not going to get out of this. We have to think that you drive research and innovation at a time of need. We are really clearly in times of need. So I think it's a how do we do this together to actually drive the improvements that we're looking for?
The perfect storm is your opportunity. Okay, thank you all so much for coming, and thank you for all you do for innovation and to support all of these good folk out here. Thank you. So we thought you'd like to hear about some of the fabulous successes of the clinical entrepreneurs. So a big welcome, please, for Hamid Jalani, co-founder of Appian, with his co-founder and CEO, Alex Truby. And I believe they've brought somebody with them. Oh, come along. Yes. So, Appian, tell me a bit about that.
So, Appian is a healthcare logistics company using autonomous robotics, whether they be
upstaged by a dog.
There you go. So meet Clive, everyone. Clive is our new addition to the NHS workforce.
Can he cope with stairs? Is it like the Daleks? Can he do
Oh!
Yes?
That step might be a bit too steep. There we go.
Oh, good, Clive.
Here he is, autonomously driving the dog. It's actually software that drives it when Benjamin has to go back to Washington. Sorry, Hamid, you were saying what we do and why this is important.
For us, it's all about autonomous logistics. It doesn't matter whether it's a
just stop it.
Autonomous flying robot or an autonomous, trotting robot. For us, it's about getting the right thing to the right place at the right time for the right person.
Now, tell me, I think that you've just done something with Great Ormond Street, haven't you, on these?
Yes. So we've recently just announced that we're bringing another drone operator into the country, having flown for the last 8.5 months at Guy's and St Thomas's, flying blood samples 10 times a day across the city. Now we're launching at Gosh. We're going to be using a new drone operator there, and indeed we're going to be deploying lots of Clives.
I imagine the kids think that's fantastic.
They do, but so do all clinicians. It's very exciting. This has actually got a canister on the back, and you've got to pass. The canister, there's 20 samples in there. It's the same canister that goes on the drones. Every sample is a patient. We can unlock this, out it comes, and that'll go on the drone as well. But are we here to talk about, I thought we're not talking about Appian, we're talking about Clinical Entrepreneur Program, and Hamid and I, and Professor Tony Young as well, and why we're here. I've been mucking around here for 8 years. I was on stage 8 years ago today. It was my mum's birthday, and you all sang happy birthday to my mum. A year later, she passed away from cancer. And 2 years after that, we flew the world's first cancer from the hospital she worked all her life at. We met here through Tony. We have nothing in common, nothing. We don't like the same sports, we don't eat the same food, we don't like the same music, but every day we speak to each other.
So what's your background?
I'm a doctor.
And what's your background?
I'm an entrepreneur and a friend of Tony's, and therefore he said to me, I got these two guys in the program, they're the youngest on the program, and I think they're going to have something that you're going to fall in love with. And indeed, I did. But what we have in common is therefore the worthwhile nature of what it is we're doing, what it is...
Now that's just showing off.
That's the shot. What it is you're all doing. So I was fortunate enough to sell my last company to Google, and I did a roadshow around England of all the accelerators and incubators, and it was death by 1,000 paper cuts until I came to this one. And this one, you had trained individuals who were professional in something, trying to solve problems that they themselves were experiencing. It was a game changer. And that's why, we've been a part of this. Therefore, to be a clinical entrepreneur program company is extremely beneficial to us. And I think that the commonality, what we have in common, is Tony, is the clinical entrepreneur program, and is the worthwhile nature of what we're doing.
Now, actually, drones have been your big thing, and just tell me quickly where they've been located.
We've done a number of projects around the country, but we're now in full service with Guy's and St Thomas's, and as I said, we're deploying with Gosh and a few other sites across London and in the north of England. But we've flown previously in the Solent, as Alex mentioned, in Northumbria, delivering blood samples and blood packs for NHS and actually also in Dublin, delivering medical devices for Medtronic. We've been around the place, and what we've done as a result of that is tested the different geographies, the different airspace constructs, the different use cases, and for us, it's very clear that we have to it doesn't matter whether you're in a city or in the middle of nowhere, it is able to make an impact drone delivery and autonomous logistics.
Fantastic. Please will you thank Hamid Jalani and Alex Truby, and of course, Clive.
Hi. And Benjamin.
Thank you very much.
Now, can I just tell you, if that had been tomorrow's world, it would have failed completely. I do remember actually pulling a robot along on a string because he stopped working. Go on, off you go, Clive. Off you go. Right, let's have our next panel up. Now, Clive, just... Let me welcome our next panel. It's all right, he won't bite. Come along, do. So for our next panel, we've got 5 senior program leaders who help make innovation happen through their support across the system. And as before, I told you, cast of thousands, as before, I'm going to ask each of them to give me a 30-second pitch, starting with you.
Thank you very much. So, I'm Chris Cheney. I'm the Chief Exec of CW+, which is the charity arm of Chelsea and Westminster Hospital NHS Foundation Trust. We have a kind of a joint partnership called CW Innovation, and I'm the lead on that. So my pitch is come and get involved with the Insights program. The Insights program has now been running for 2 years. We were lucky enough to be invited into the first cohort. And what is the Insights program? The Insights program is a network of 18 innovation teams across England who are looking to help drive innovation, adopt innovation, and build a culture of innovation across the NHS. To date, those 18 organizations are serving a community of 155,000 staff, 35 million people, raised nearly £10 million. And we are very, very keen to do a lot more. We're just heating up, so come and join us.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Raffaella Roncone. I'm Assistant Director and Head of Innovation and Enterprises, and I deliver, together with our team, 2 programs on behalf of NHS England. One is SBRI Healthcare, and the other one is the NHS Cancer Programme. And what we do is really to provide funding and support to make innovation, to accelerate innovation into the NHS. We support early stage projects to enable testing of business feasibility, technology development, and clinical evidence, but also mature innovation to accelerate them into the NHS.
Hi everyone, my name's Alice Williams. I am the Patient and Public Involvement Lead at NHS England in our Life Sciences and Innovation team. And our team supports the Patient Entrepreneur Programme, and we're really excited that we've got Cohort 2 up and running this year. Last year was the first time that we ran a Patient Entrepreneur Programme, and for me it's an absolute passion because while we've got loads of clinicians and healthcare professionals on the programme doing fantastic work at really understanding the real world problems, you know who else knows what those real world problems are? It's patients and families. They live with those conditions day in, day out. So I'm absolutely delighted that we've got patients on the programme. I'm really passionate about patient involvement throughout the whole innovation pipeline, from understanding need right through design, development, user testing, all the way through to education and marketing and how we get spread and adoption really happening in the NHS. And I'm really passionate as well about how we use health technology to really address health inequalities. So Lucy Chappell's words before were music to my ears, because we can make a huge difference in this space. So really excited to be here today.
So great, always start with a patient. Mindy.
Hi, I'm Mindy Simon. I'm one of the co-directors of the NHS Innovation Accelerator, and I see us as the big sister of the Clinical Entrepreneurs Programme. So my pitch is that once you've gone through the Clinical Entrepreneurs Programme, they've given you that kind of early support for your ideas, and you get your first contract, etc., please come to the NIE and we will support you to that kind of acceleration and that spread through a wraparound program over 3 years, giving quite intensive support around your innovation personally. And we'll connect you with people within the system, we'll give you the tools to be able to work with the system, and we'll be able to kind of highlight you and give you the visibility within the kind of policy sector as well as with the decision makers.
Great stuff. Chris.
Good afternoon, my name is Chris Lang. I'm Chief Executive of UCL Partners and I'm representing the 15 health innovation networks. So we work in concert with each other and with all the people up here on stage. Our mission is around health and wealth, so we're unabashed about economic growth and wealth creation being objective, and we're trying to take promising solutions that have been tested in a small number of sites up to regional scale, and for a smaller number of opportunities up to national scale, as we've heard earlier. What are our capabilities? Local networks, local knowledge, access to the healthcare system. We've got some in-house capabilities. We can help you raise money. We can sort of test how market ready you are, all the way through to patient engagement and real-world evaluation. We can set up partnerships, and what I'd like to see a bit more of has been mentioned, is collaborations between innovators with healthcare providers on producing slightly bigger solutions rather than point solutions, so we can foster those partnerships. And we're also interested in telling the story of how this is important innovation for health and wealth, for UK PLC, and for the transformation of our health services. And in terms of impact metrics, Steve's got his numbers. So we've contributed to over 3 billion in economic growth, and the innovations we've supported have touched around 5 million patients, and that's more than 30 seconds, so I'm going to be penalised, but thank you.
So all of you offer a smorgasbord of opportunity and support for clinical entrepreneurs. But what's the one thing, if you had to say why your organisation, what's the one thing that your organisation offers that is either unique or particularly special to you? Let's start with you, Chris.
So I would say access to healthcare systems at slightly larger scale than single provider levels. So I think that scale opportunity, and I think the in-house capabilities of our team that we can train on supporting to you with our exchequer-funded income.
Mindy, what's the one thing, again, you had a big long list, what's the one thing that you can
I think
offer?
it's the level of support that we give. I think we give quite wraparound care. So I think you can give mentoring, you can give learning, you can give contacts, you can give peer network, but bringing all of those together in one package, I think is probably the best way for an innovator to learn and to grow themselves as well as grow their company. It's all about deep dive, all into you support.
Alice, it's obviously got to be patience, but I think sometimes clinical entrepreneurs are a bit scared of patients.
Yeah, I think actually it's quite true of quite a lot of healthcare staff, is that we deal with patients every day, but actually genuinely sharing power, genuinely bringing patient insight into what's going wrong can feel quite scary sometimes. So, I mean, I guess my urge to everybody is to kind of just let those guards down and have those real conversations, because the power of having patient colleagues on this program with you, but also kind of thinking about how you leverage patient insight, is your innovation will be better for it. Yeah. You'll get it right. It will fly at the end rather than kind of staggering a little bit. So honestly, kind of bring, it's been said earlier before today, but bring people in early, talk to them often, and that will really kind of help your innovation fly.
Yeah, never forget, patients are fantastic ambassadors, and they pull things through the system rather than push. Rafaela.
So for us, is funding. So our two programs provide funding to develop.
She said the magic word there.
Is the magic
Form an
word.
orderly queue.
To develop the technology and also to implement the technology into the NHS. But as Tony mentioned last week, it's a little bit more than money. It's like smart money, because we work very closely with the Health Innovation Accelerator, with the Health Innovation Network and the NHS Innovation Accelerator and other partners to make our entrepreneur to consider key things very early on. We already mentioned patient and public, health inequalities, sustainability, value proposition, commercialization at early stage, for instance. Late stage, we provide access to decision makers and mentorship and...
So it's a lot more than one thing. It's a lot more than one thing. Let's move to you. What's the one thing that you feel that you can offer?
So I think the one piece of the jigsaw puzzle that the Insights program looks to fill is being a front door for individual provider organizations and offering practical, on-the-ground guidance of how to set up, run, manage, and hopefully get adopted your innovation at a local level and then a network beyond that where you could hopefully engage others.
Because the adoption is the real black box of all of this, isn't it? I want to ask you, I mean, we've heard a bit from Steve Paris. Often, all you innovators, well, you all think your products are great, of course you do. And the problem, you always think, as Steve outlined, is that it's the system that isn't taking it up that's the problem. So what do you think innovators need to do to get adoption in the NHS? I'm going to start with Chris.
So I think pragmatically, know who's actually buying the technology is probably good advice. In London, in digital health, 75 to 80% of procurement is still at provider level. It's never been at ICBs. I think the innovations that are born from this group are the production line of innovation is really from the clinical workforce, clinical insight, and from patients. So I think it's baked into the clinical entrepreneurs, but that clinical insight is not always apparent in all of the innovations landing on the system. But make sure your solutions are clinically grounded, and clinical transformation will yield the operational and financial benefits that the NHS needs, I think. And then finally, there's something in a crowded market, being a bit unique and solving a big enough problem. So I think, and where you're not solving a big enough problem, how might you club together to produce a kind of bundled solution that tackles something really quite big? That would be my advice.
Okay, Mindy.
I think I'd follow on from Chris, because all of this stuff he's saying is, where do you find that information? So how do you know what the need is? I would say use the innovation ecosystem support that's out there. There is a wealth of support for innovators. There are the HINs, which of course Chris just spoke about. There's the NHS Innovation Service, which is your single front door. They will do a needs assessment for you. They will tell you what it is, where your gaps are, and then they'll help signpost you. That's a first point of call. Then you've got SBRI who'll give you the funding. You've got the NIA, and you've got CEP who'll give you all of that. Now you have all of that out there. You're not alone. And I think staying in a siloed piece where you think that you know everything and you don't need the advice of anybody else, I don't think that works. I think learn from all of us, but come together and use that ecosystem that is out there for you.
Fab. Alice, briefly.
Yeah, I would say two things. Pay attention to patient experience, pay attention to inclusivity. If your innovation, quite often we collect data on financial outcomes, bed days saved, inpatient episodes, and so on. We've got our financial cost benefits. We've got our clinical outcomes, where clinical outcomes are being improved. But we don't always pay attention to patient experience. But if patients have a poor experience of your innovation, there will be low take-up and there will be poor adherence. So in the end, you will not realize the benefits or even the sales that you really want to see. The other thing is design inclusivity from the outcome. So again, it's been alluded to a little bit earlier on, but we have huge health inequality challenges in this in this country at the moment and across our health service. There is a massive opportunity to help the NHS address those. But also, if you don't design inclusivity in from the outset, then we risk making those gaps wider, not smaller. So we need to be thinking about how will people access our technology? What about people with sight impairments or people who have English as an additional language? How will people kind of access our treatment? Where will they do that? At home, as a wearable, these things have huge advantages, but we've got to design inclusivity from the outset.
Okay. Chris, you were saying about you provide a front door.
So I think one of the things that companies and entrepreneurs need to bring to the table is a co-design mindset. So there has never been an example that I'm aware of, and I doubt if there ever will be, of a product or an entrepreneur stepping into a real-world clinical setting and everyone going, that is perfect, let's plug it in and just go. You need to, it needs to adapt, it needs to be contextualized at a local level. You're going to need to win the battle of hearts and minds with busy clinicians, busy operational staff. Now, the Insights team can support you in that process, but ultimately you've got to come with an open mind, be prepared to be adaptable, be patient, and be prepared to adapt to the needs of that local environment, which might be very similar to other organizations you're working with, but there will be enough nuance that you need to be aware of.
So we've had open mind, accept help. Rafaela.
maybe just
finish us off.
Another thing to everything that I said that I totally agree with. Maybe like build your network in terms of clinical champions and system champions in order really to enter the NHS.
Yeah, eat a lot of cocktail sausages and go and talk to a lot of people. That just always helps. Thank you so much, all of you, and thank you for all the support that you give this programme. Thank you. So we've got another opportunity to meet a great clinical entrepreneur. Would you please welcome Dr. Julie Hammond, GP and founder of Mamar. I'm just going to say it, you look fabulous.
Thank you.
Completely fabulous. So, Julie, tell me about Mamar.
Okay, so Mamar is a digital health platform designed to help support parents from preconception to the first 1,000 days of their child's life. And if I can go into my journey into why I created the app. So essentially my journey into innovation began in 2020 during COVID. I was working in A&E and I witnessed firsthand how COVID was disproportionately affecting people that looked like my mum, looked like my dad. During that time as well, there was a lot of information about the inequalities that existed within maternity care. And unfortunately, I became one of the statistics myself when I had my own experience of pregnancy loss. So during that time, I grew very frustrated, I grew tired. I was tired of seeing the research, I was tired of seeing nothing being done, I was tired of hearing the stories of women like myself. So I decided to be part of the change and create a solution to address that, which is why I created Mamar. So also talking to women, I realized that inequalities don't just exist within people from the global majority backgrounds, even white women are also experiencing inequalities as well. So for them, it's mainly for people from poor socioeconomic backgrounds. And I also found that health literacy was also lacking as well. So the average UK reading age is 9 to 11 years old. And when you give a leaflet to a patient, 43% of these patients don't even understand the information that's been given to them. So how are we going to be able to make sure that they're able to adapt these healthy solutions that we're suggesting to them? So I wanted to create something that was interactive, that was engaging, that was accessible, that anyone could access regardless of their spoken language, regardless of their learning style.
So it's not just pregnancy, is it? It's immediately afterwards as well. Yes. I always remember doing a survey as a journalist, and people kept on writing to me and saying, nobody ever tells you about what happens afterwards, and everybody runs away, and you've got a baby.
Yeah. So in my textbooks in medical school, because also, sorry, my background's I'm a GP and a mum of 2 as well, and I saw that there was a baby somewhere up there. So I'm so happy that someone brought their baby along. I wish I brought my son. So yes, no one told me. I was a GP, I became a mother, and then I just found that there was so much information that I didn't understand. I went to my textbooks first of all, obs and gynae books. Where do they end? If you're lucky, they might go up to 12 weeks after pregnancy, but even afterwards, they don't really fully explain all the changes, how it can affect you from head to toe. I feel like going through motherhood is like going through kind of a puberty. So this is why, again, I saw a gap in the market, and I've also written a book on the 4th trimester, which I've got a publishing deal, and it'll be published in the UK and also US in 2026.
Fantastic. So tell me about the app itself. How do people get the information? How do you give them the information?
Okay, so there will be interactive videos that they can access, so you get 3D models of both mum and also baby as well. And I'll have an interactive AI avatar that you can speak to in your chosen language, and will speak back to you with the health information that's verified. Because
one of the really difficult things is actually families are split now. They used to have your mum living with you or next door, and now mum lives the other end of the country. And you've got this thing, and you've got no idea whether what it's doing is normal or not.
Yes. So again, what I wanted to do is bring all these resources into one place. So within my app, we also have a community network that you can meet other mums in your local area. And then also it'll be a service provider marketplace as well, where you can access different services. So if you don't have your family close by, you can find out your local doulas, nannies, night nurse, whatever service you need will be at your fingertips.
And how much have people, mothers, been involved in the development of this?
So I'm currently running focus groups at the moment. So I have a number of sessions booked in for next month where I'll be going out into local community organisations, speaking to mothers and seeing if this product addresses all of their needs. So they're designed at the core. Everything I'm designing is with them in my mind.
So constantly adapting.
Yes, constantly adapting. So even from when I first came up with the idea last year, it's completely changed because I've heard feedback. It's not always easy to hear the feedback, but I've adapted.
And what's been the greatest pleasure you've had in the feedback from mums?
I think just hearing mums say that I wish this existed when I was pregnant, or that even a partner saying that my wife, whoever, would have benefited from this app, and just hearing that there's nothing else in the market like it at the moment, that services are so disjointed that people just want something that helps them throughout the child's development, I should say, yeah.
Well, Dr. Julie Hammond, I think it's a brilliant, brilliant thing that you've done. And there are masses of people who are so grateful for what you've done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done. So now to our third panel. There they are, poised for action. So this panel is all about partnership. And all of these people or their organisations have been partners to the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme. Anglia Ruskin University has been the delivery partner for the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme since the very start. Its motto is excellence through partnership. And so from the very start, partnership has been embedded in this programme as a pathway to its success. Which, we're doing the orange thing. We're doing the orange thing. So let me say to all of you, first of all, your pitch, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Fiona. I am the Associate Director for Innovation and Workforce Diversification in NHS Education for Scotland. So greetings to anybody else from Scotland and everybody else within the room. NES, NHS Education for Scotland, has statutory responsibility for workforce training and education. In the context of innovation, that means that we need to make sure we have the right skills and capabilities in the right time at the right place to maximize adoption and innovation to best effect. All these energize entrepreneurs and innovators within the room wanting their innovation to proceed to best effect. As an organisation, we're interested in supporting those skills, but also supporting adoption within the system, so that for the innovation that happens tomorrow, next week, and even the month after becomes easier and easier and easier. So we have a workforce that's skilled and adaptive in terms of making best use of these innovations to best effect, either in terms of end audience as a learner or end audience as Scotland's population. And I'm sure the same would be for respective countries across UK.
Thank you. So that's a whole nation. Now to a voluntary organisation. Fiona.
So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Fiona. I'm the Chief Policy and Research Officer at Alzheimer's Society. And I don't know how many people in this room know, but Alzheimer's and dementia is the UK's biggest killer, and I'm sure personally and professionally has probably affected every single one of us in this room. So Alzheimer's Society is the leading dementia charity. We provide help for today through 1,000 dementia advisors in local communities and actually in people's homes, holding their hand through this real, tragic circumstances. But also hope for tomorrow, which is the portfolio I lead, funding research and innovation, advocating with our beneficiaries to decision makers, and changing the narrative. And my pitch is really simple. Dementia devastates lives, innovation transforms them. So we need you, and people affected by dementia need you.
Thank you so much. And another country.
Hello there. My name's Joanne Rhodes. I'm here representing Northern Ireland. I lead the Health Innovation Research Alliance Northern Ireland, and I moved there 5 years ago to start the network. There's a number of innovators here from Northern Ireland, so really pleased to help represent you here on the stage. I'm also a professor of practice at Queen's University Belfast and Ulster University, and prior to that was a pharma professional, but moved to Northern Ireland to start the network. And really, our mission is to be an honest broker. We're a not-for-profit organisation to form the glue across academia, life sciences, innovators, the clinic and policy, and provide the resources to unlock that for better health and also growth and prosperity. And in the last 5 years, we've facilitated £65 million of public-private private investment in Northern Ireland in this space. So my pitch really is that there's a real opportunity to connect. The UK is the third largest global life sciences cluster. And faster impact, though, is driven by people power, culture, and our stories. So let's find the place to connect, tell those stories, and do it faster and better.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Minty Ledger. I'm the Managing Director for Cambridge University Health Partners. And as an organisation, we bring together the universities and the NHS trusts in Cambridge. And of course, one of those universities is Anglia Ruskin University, the host of the Clinical Entrepreneurs Programme. And I think probably our pitch as an organisation would be to say that partnership doesn't happen by itself. So we actually, I'm sure we all know the effort that goes into forming the right connections and collaborations. So really come to us and we will do our very best to open up the ecosystem for you to find the right connections for your innovations, whether that's funding, clinical contact, patient engagement. And so yes, please come to us and we will do our best to support you.
Now I'm going to ask Fiona Caraher first of all, because innovation is now absolutely your thing at the Alzheimer's. And what I wanted to find out was really, what do you think the future of innovation is in your area?
Yeah, so if we think about dementia, so there's going to be 1.4 million people living with dementia by 2040, and that global number is 150 million. And this is too big a problem for any one organisation to solve alone. And at Alzheimer's Society, that's why we're here. We know it's going to take a society to beat dementia, and we're going to have all of us here to do that. Innovation is really, really important. In fact, it's absolutely crucial, because you may even have heard on the news this morning, as Steve Powers mentioned, we are on the cusp of breakthrough treatments for the first time ever for Alzheimer's disease, and there's 180 clinical trials. It's a really, really exciting scientific time. But even with these breakthroughs, we are not going to be able to solve the whole problem with dementia just by a drug. It's going to take really good early and accurate diagnosis, innovation that's going to help people to have the care and support that they need to live independently for as home as long as possible, which is what every single person wants to do. And ultimately, having that data to really understand where we can make changes to the system. And all of that's going to need innovation in a way that the broader science and research agenda is not going to meet.
And what's particularly notable, I think, is the way that you're involving patients in innovation.
Yeah, and I think that was, it has come out strongly from other groups, but I think this is where we really wanted to partner with Tony and the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme, because we understand dementia probably better than anybody else. We've got over 7 million interactions with us every year. We see face-to-face hundreds of thousands of people with dementia. So they're telling us what the problems they're seeing day in, day out are. So one of the things we can do is convene, we can broker, so that we have that proper co-production and co-design, because ultimately the innovations are going to fly when they meet the needs of the individuals who are going to use them.
Thank you. Now, Fiona, north of the border, you've got a very vibrant innovation culture. It's really motoring. But so what are you looking at in terms of future? Where do you think your innovation space is going, and what kind of partnerships are you looking for in the future?
Thank you. Probably two separate areas. One, if we focus on partnership and collaboration with learners and workforce, is to make sure that emergent tech, ed tech can be maximized so that either undergraduate, vocational qualification, however somebody develops the skills and capabilities that they require for the function now, as well as the future state, we do that as effectively and as efficiently as possible so that the public purse has higher yield, but we maintain resilience. There are so many words mentioned today, but I think resilience is a key one so that we can develop both the clinical workforce that we require, meet the professional ideals of those that are developing their careers, innovators and entrepreneurs for in the room, but make it simpler perhaps to have a dual run in terms of innovation, entrepreneurial spirit, and to maintain clinical capacity. So in terms of the learners, that would be our hope and our vision. So about agility and adeptness in terms of moving.
And you often hear people talking about the need to educate the workforce, and somehow that often drops off by the side.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. And that's key, because there's been mention so far today about positive disruption, and all of us, I think, would be excited and running towards the positive disruption that innovation and entrepreneurialism has potential for within our health and care system. However, we need to manage that effectively. And so it's making sure that the adoption and implementation is managed to best effect. My own organisation, NERS, are part of a collaborative partnership with ARU, Accelerated National Innovation and Adoption. That's for scalable, adaptive and adoptive innovation for national benefit, and we work with national partners. So there's a clarity about what each organisation offers to the implementation programme. No matter how exciting the adoption of the innovation is, it's adoption that makes the difference in relation to end patient population. So what we're doing is making sure that we work in harmony and real cohesion with our collaborative partnership agencies, so that the innovation pipeline is as seamless as possible, that there are as few gaps as possible within that, and the adoption and the implementation has a context that stays true. There was mention again earlier about innovation becoming perhaps a little bit wayward or off the beaten track, I'm paraphrasing there, making sure that the innovation stays true to the context of the problem that it's trying to solve. I think that's our biggest challenge, but the biggest opportunity when we work in partnership and see the problem through a whole system lens.
Joanne, so your thoughts, where do you think you'll be going in Northern Ireland in terms of innovation and the type of collaborations you'll be looking for?
Yes, so the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme has been fundamental to us. So we're a fairly young agency in that we're 5 years old, and we needed to think about how we disseminated into the culture this sort of innovation opportunity. But actually in the wider ecosystem, Northern Ireland, we've got a small population of 2 million, but we're home to the UK's largest diagnostics company, which is Randox, which you might have heard of in the pandemic. We've got a £1 billion indigenous company called Almac that supplies all global pharma, but they weren't working locally as much as they should with the local ecosystem. So the future for me is thinking about how we join that up, and how we can really inspire those people working in the healthcare service to understand their role as a driver and an engine for both health outcomes, but also prosperity, because eventually those people who are working in the health service, they can help adopt innovations that are going to drive jobs growth, whether that's in other parts of the UK or even in Northern Ireland as well. So I think it's a really important point of the health and wealth agenda to help drive that in Northern Ireland. The other piece as well that we're looking at as well is we're a front door to Northern Ireland. Health has devolved, so there's a somewhat fragmented way that the NHS works in that space. So if we can provide some glue and some joined up thinking across with other agencies in the UK who are doing this, and this is why the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme has been so important to us. They came to Northern Ireland to run a pit stop, which was brilliant. Not many people tend to come to Northern Ireland to do things. So Tanya said, yes, we're coming. And it was fantastic for our credibility to be able to say, these people have come, they want to see what's here, they want to share their learning. And so that has been really impactful for us. And it's one of the things, if we look back over the last 5 years, how our organisation has been judged. People talk about the Northern Ireland cohort of clinical entrepreneurs. And so for the future, I would like to see that scale and spread and push, help those people influence their leadership within their trusts, within their families and communities to say, you are part of the innovation pipeline, please come and join us.
So basically you're saying, Northern Ireland, brilliant testbed, come to us.
Yes.
Fantastic. Minty.
Thank you, and I think one of the things that Lucy articulated really well earlier that we're trying to strive towards as an ecosystem is really trying to make innovation a must-have as opposed to just a nice to have. So how do you really embed and support an environment where innovation can run alongside business as usual for a trust, supporting and enhancing what they do? And so one of the really tangible approaches that we took in conversation with lots of our innovators and entrepreneurs was to set up what we call innovation landing zones, which sit within each of our trusts. And really, all those are a function within the NHS Trust that has the capability and capacity to be able to talk to innovators, to communicate the strategic aims of the trust, and to really handhold an innovation through so that it can be tested and then hopefully scaled and adopted. And that has been a really successful approach, aided, I must say, by the NHS Insights programme that we heard about earlier, and also the Clinical Entrepreneurs programme. And so that's something that we're really trying to throw our weight behind as an ecosystem and to engage with other national networks that are doing the same.
Fantastic. And I wonder what kind of person you would like to walk through the door from the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme. And, you know, what are you looking specifically for from them?
So, so the Dementia Innovators cohort, we are here to walk with you, number one. We want someone who is bold, who is creative, who is innovative, who is going to build connections outside of their specialism, because in my 30-year plus career, innovation always happens at the margins and the boundaries. So that's the really bit I would kind of encourage you to be. Seek for the people who are disruptors and different thinkers. And ultimately, that is what our patients and our communities desperately need from us. So just be bold and brave.
Minty.
I would say so. The type of person, you are the type of people that we want you to walk through the door. And I would say, probably just to add to that, I think an element of flexibility and the ability to sort of listen and be resilient with your ideas and to change them in response to feedback. And I think that is really important. And I think we've heard
that
from
resilience
that
thing is something we're hearing
absolutely.
a lot about. I'm guessing you're all pretty resilient because some, you know, shutting the door quite often. How about you? I mean, I was thinking actually, as you were talking, that sometimes what you need to think about in innovation is you need to think about the end product and then work backwards to all of those things that will allow it to flourish.
Thank you indeed. Or perhaps the end problem or the challenge, and then work back from that, forgive me, in terms of what we're trying to solve. So the person I might like to see coming through the door, I think would best suit the landscape in Scotland or any of the other nations, is probably somebody I don't expect. But somebody that in combination with collaborators or partners has a mixed skill set, so phenomenal digital, AI, technical, scientific ability, but the nuance and the intuition and the people skill and perhaps the communication style to convey the potential of that innovation to those of us that might be trying to select appropriateness, but not have the same specific market knowledge, for example. So I think a mixed discipline, a combination of skills in partnership or collaboration as entrepreneurs or innovators is incredibly compelling to any of us. Thank you.
Joanne.
So I agree with all of these points. One of the people I would really love to see come through the door, I've already come prepared, sleeves rolled up, ready to get stuck in. And those people who will give their time, but I'm not just looking for the person that's looking to develop their innovation. I'm looking for the people that can develop the network and bring their network in. And we've got some fantastic examples within Northern Ireland. Frances Duffy, who you're going to hear from later, has brought her dementia network in and is always offering to help, offering to be a mentor or to assess or to help others. And we've got a number of our clinical entrepreneurs who will give their time both up and to influence their ideas and what they want to get done, but also people in adjacents. And I think one of the strengths is we've got our own cohort and group in Northern Ireland, and if about a year ago, I wanted to get in touch with who controlled healthcare in our prisons in Northern Ireland, and I had absolutely no idea. I stuck it in my WhatsApp. Within 2 minutes, I had the email and I had an introduction. And so that was really the power of the network. And when you've got a fragmented system, we all play our part. And so the type of person that I want is somebody that wants to work in all directions and will give their time to others.
Wow, what a welcome we have for you today, Jim. So in the audience here, just to set the scene, we've got around 1,400 people who, about half, maybe more, are frontline NHS staff who are working in innovation and entrepreneurship programs. We have over 250 commercial mentors who give their time for free to help upskill our workforce. We have industry supporters and partners who help provide training and education for them. And I went through my little black book in the City of London. So we've got investment managers, trust funds, pension funds, investment bankers, family offices, and VCs, all who support investment in our entrepreneurs. And to give you an idea, Steve Powers was here earlier and set the scene. In our first 9 years of the Entrepreneur Programme, we've now created, I think it's 596 startups that have raised over £1.1 billion between them. And that's 1.1 billion you haven't had to find to invest in innovation. So I've got a few kind of questions for you, because you've just become the chief exec of NHS England, and before we get into that, you've just had a chance to meet some of our great startups outside, and I've shown you a few things. What's your reflections? What did you think of what you saw?
Well, it's mind-boggling, isn't it? I mean, I think the energy is really palpable as well when you come in, and I'm working at a fast pace, but you can just feel that energy, the buzz, the pace at which people are moving. And that, the stuff that we've just seen there is actually genuinely mind-boggling. It's quite hard to imagine that these things really exist. But I'm immediately thinking, how do we get this out there? How do we get it into the service? How do we get it normalised? And then how do we enable people to move on the next bit?
Yeah, it's almost like you know some of my questions that are coming. Let's see. So, I mean, I actually know you a little bit because when you were in Northumbria, you stepped forward and became one of our first Insights programs, and your team up there were pioneering. They were pioneering with drones and our first, cancer chemotherapy drone flights and such things. But my kind of second question to you was, so I know a little something about you, and I don't think they do. What's the most entrepreneurial thing you've ever done?
I think possibly creation of NHS Fleet Solutions.
Oh yeah, do you want to tell them what that is?
So that was, it's a big NHS, mainly NHS, but it supplies into other sectors now, provides leased cars at a reasonable rate for staff. So that started in Northumbria. Me and a couple of other colleagues set that off in the mid-late 90s. We nearly sold it a few years ago. It was the 4th biggest leasing business in the country at that point, and managed to get Northumbria through austerity and the difficult financial times since then, but provided a lot of staff with an ability to have a car at a reasonable rate without all the usual credit checks and stuff that were a problem. The bit I think you might be referring to might be in COVID, we created a PPE factory. Other colleagues, I didn't have that much to do with it, but in a classic NHS way, at the height of COVID, we worked out we were going to run out of gowns quite quickly. There's a bit of a national message. 3 days before we were going to hit our peak. So colleagues went off, bit of comms, big community response. So had a car business came forward to give us space. We had people coming forward who worked in their textiles, etc. Within a couple of weeks, within 9 days, we produced, start to finish, first gown, then produced millions of gowns. And the last time I looked and was involved in it, about 4 years after that, we were still not signed off to supply into the NHS. So that is one of our problems. Honestly, start to finish, thought to producing a gown to the right standard, 9 days. Unbelievable.
So I did a little little bit of background work, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot with numbers. You should never ask, I think, a politician how much a loaf of bread is. Do you, and I'm about to ask you something, will I keep my job? Do you know how much NHS Fleet Services in Northumbria turned over last year?
Tell me.
£150 million. You really do have an entrepreneur for a chief exec of the National Health Service, don't you? That's amazing, isn't it? All delivering that investment back into the NHS. It's incredible. Look what you've built. Unbelievable, isn't it? However,
there were a lot of other people involved in that as well.
I don't know. But the thing is, isn't it, there's a risk aversion in things, and it's that blessing and permission, and people don't get into trouble for just doing the day job, but in your role, you've got to take risks, haven't you?
Absolutely.
And what would your advice be to entrepreneurs here about risks and taking them? What do you think?
So there's a few ways of looking at this. First point is, in healthcare, what we do is manage risk. What clinicians do is manage risk. We all live with risk all the time. Often when people are trying to stop us doing things, they view the counterfactual as a zero risk environment. It doesn't exist. None of our lives are about zero risk environments. So don't let that kid you or take you out of the game at all. And we, more than ever, in the current situation, need innovation. We need to take more risk. We need to change our risk appetite. And we need to be more agile about how we have oversight of that, how we understand what the impact is, how we can course correct if we get some of it wrong, but also have insight and understanding that we'll get stuff wrong. It's just, that's kind of the point. It's learning from it that's important. And we now, we in the national system, have got to find ways that allow people to innovate. I had a long conversation with a young dermatologist the other day, for example, just one of those opportune moments of meeting. We talked about teledermatology and the risk aversion with teledermatology. And the thing we ended up with, what would enable you to use this properly? And the thing that he said would make most use was we as an institution saying we would back him if things went wrong. Well, that should be really straightforward, shouldn't it? And this stuff often fails at that point. People feel or made to feel personally exposed if something goes wrong. But the other thing I would add in all this, in reality, in my view as an accountant, most of the really big clinical advances over time have happened in extreme circumstances. Wars, pandemic, recessions, you name it. When we've had all of that in the last few years, and we saw some fantastic advances during COVID, but we've then gone back to normal to make all these things very rigid and very hard to do again. So I'll just urge you all to have a go. Make it hard to say no. And big organizations are built to say no. That's what, that's the control environment that we're in. Seek forgiveness rather than permission.
Ooh, I quite like that. I do that all the time. There's a couple of difficult ones here. I think you're just going to trust me. So if you had been applied and been given a place on the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme this year, or our National Innovation Accelerator, all of that, how would you go about getting your innovation adopted in the NHS?
That's a really good...
They all want to know the answer to that.
So I'm thinking there's a lot of young clinicians in the room. Find support from senior colleagues, find mentorship, air cover, people who've been around and know how the system works, can navigate decision making, and can help you with the calibration of risk. But I think often just finding mentors, colleagues who know how to get things done in big organizations, because every health organization is a big organization. They're complicated to get things done. That would be one big thing. And they can also help when things don't quite go right. And how do you hold your nerve when something's gone wrong and stay focused on what the end point is?
And I think there's a bit of a misconception in the system because I first met and worked with David Nicholson and then Simon Stevenson and Amanda, and I used to think there was a lever that the chief exec at NHS England could pull and suddenly everything would happen.
Yeah.
It's not like that, is it?
No, no, thank God. So often in my trust life, I would feel like the main thing I did was encourage people to do things in spite of the controls that were around them. And in reality, there's usually not that much damage you can do. And the controls are so strong often. People can feel like if they do something, there'll be a catastrophic effect. But usually, there's an awful lot of safeguards there as well. And really, honestly, have a go. Find a way of making things happen. And we will increasingly have to try and find ways nationally of backing people to do that. That's not to say be reckless clinically and those sorts of things, which people wouldn't be, but just back people to take a few leaps.
So one of the things we teach our innovators and entrepreneurs to do is to pitch.
Yeah.
And I bet people love to find you and pitch. What's the worst pitch you've ever had, and what's the best one? So they learn what not to do and what to do. What would you say?
So the worst thing, and this happens every day, I get emails, long emails, I've got this product, blah, blah, blah. They just get lost in the sea of emails. So you read them, you get very used to somebody saying they've got something, then you talk to them, you find out they haven't. We've got this product, you talk to them, it doesn't exist. What they really want is to find somewhere that'll help them build it, but they haven't said it. So when we appointed Andrew Edmonds, mentioned earlier on in Northumbria, a big part of Andrew's job was to be a bit of a filter, differentiate which things should we explore and which things not. So definitely don't do that. Chief execs and NHS leaders are, the thing that none of us have got is time. And there's just load of noise and crowd all the time. So if you've got a pitch, be really clear what your message is, be really direct, be really brief, and then be prepared to follow it up with some details. So I'm thinking immediately of the things I've seen outside. They've sold it really effectively, it's really impressive. I could now do with something that I can use to follow that up and share with colleagues to try and help get it off the ground.
So I'll provide a summary of all of those for you. I've got my homework set out. So we know that there's lots of change and lots of announcements in the NHS at the moment, and people here will already know about the 3 shifts that we're going to see in the 10-year plan that's coming forward. But one that I don't think any country in the world has ever been able to grasp with is that move from treatment now and disease, moving to prevention. And innovation and entrepreneurship has an enormous role to play in that, but it comes at a cost because the benefit is 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line. What are your thoughts on how we're going to be able to make that happen? And what role do you think the life science industry, our innovators in the NHS who are seeing the problems in the front line, how can they have a role in that?
Yes, well, we're grappling with this really in a live situation now with the spending review and the 10-year plan and where we are and how do we make an impact in this. I've just left a finance directors conference actually earlier on today where some of the questions were about how do we do this long-term stuff, understanding we've got a lot of heavy lifting today and mess to sort out, etc. The reality is our lives can't be binary. They're not one or the other. They have to be both. First point. We are absolutely paying the price now of avoiding this 10, 15, 20 years ago. So let's not do that again. The other point I would make is again, as a finance person, the maths is usually pretty powerful on prevention. And in reality, if we spend absolutely everything that people want us to spend on prevention, it's still a relatively small sum in the scheme of what the NHS spends because the hospital sector is now so expensive. And in a local system, so if you're in a local system like Newcastle, where I'm on loan from, trust turnover of £1.7 billion, if we'd said in that patch would spend 1.7 million on prevention, it would be absolutely mind-boggling and we would struggle to digest it. So think of the maths in all this, as well as like maths to bring it to life, the scale, etc. And then also we need to help people demonstrate the ROI. And often on prevention, the return's actually shorter than people think as well. So you look at what happened with smoking and some of the other big leaps over the years. often what we might think is a 15, 20-year thing, maybe a 5-year thing, because we're actually in uncharted territory on a lot of this stuff. But make the case, make the numbers work.
So I think sometimes people think the NHS has such a big budget, it can just get on and do it on its own. But in reality, I'm not aware that we've designed or invented and created a novel drug that's become a global blockbuster that we manufacture. We have to work with the life science industry.
Absolutely.
And the Prime Minister, in his speech at the King's Fund late last year, said, we're going to put the weight of the British government behind our life science industry. Yeah. So if we're going to step, and we've heard already today on some of the panels before this about how different bits, the Office for Life Science, the NIHR, the Department of Health and Social Care, NHS England are supporting that. But what do you need from the life science industry to help you deliver improved patient experience, improved patient outcomes? What would be your ask, not just to our startups and scale-ups here, but to bigger industry, and maybe the people who are investing in those industries? What should they be backing? What do you need from them?
Again, this is very topical at the moment. So first of all, healthcare and life sciences are a really big part of our economy. They're a really big part if we're going to really generate the growth that we need in the future. We are completely dependent on each other. Where this sometimes doesn't work well is it feels like it's a tug of war. What one is getting something that the other doesn't want to give, or there's too much tension in it, or it feels unfair on one party. And we've just got to find that sweet spot where this works for everyone, because if it works for the NHS and life sciences, it works for the population, which is the thing that we really have to do. Let's be upfront about that. Let's have the, if there's a genuinely commercial conversation to have, let's have the commercial conversation. Don't dress it up as something else. We can talk about affordability and prioritization and the things that we really need the innovations in first. So, and sometimes there's a desire to go in a certain direction in life sciences, but our immediate issues or priorities are slightly misaligned. So let's work on getting those things fully aligned.
So I think it's the theme we've heard earlier about collaboration, and we're now joining up different bits, or working as one team in the public sector. And I think what you're hearing is a real willing to work in collaboration in new ways with our life science industry. We've got the second largest life science industry in the world. I want it to be the first. Yeah. I'm building enough startups, so let's do that. We've often hear, and I know you will hear every time you go somewhere, people will criticize the NHS for how it might not be fast at taking up innovation or procuring things, or you have to go through the same process every single time you go to a different place. If you had to pick what you think the NHS should do better as a system in this space, if you had to pick one or two things where it should focus on trying to help the latest, greatest technologies, whether it's drones or robots or new artificial intelligence systems, what should we do in our systems and processes to help make that better?
So our big weakness is there can be something really wonderful happening next door, and you either don't know about it or you won't adopt it because it's next door. And that's just a real thing that we have in the NHS. We have to get over that, given what we've got to deliver. I mean, just look at all the amazing stuff you've got. If we just do everything here, everywhere, consistently, we're absolutely smashing it, aren't we? Everything's sorted. And then, I don't want to dwell on COVID too much, but I've talked a bit about this week. When you think back to that sort of March into April 2020 period, I have a lot of very vivid memories, some of them awful about the whole thing. But I remember talking to people who just connected with Italy. And then it went into France, and there was a lot of narrative about don't use these particular clinical techniques because they'll kill people, etc. Came into London. We were about 2 weeks behind London in the northeast, as I remember it. And then watching the London system work out that what they were told out of Europe actually wasn't true, and if you did things in certain ways, it could actually save people. And then that just spread up the country. So start to finish, like 3 weeks, clinical trials in action, idea testing, implementation, publishing a few weeks later, as well. we have to get where we need to be, we've got to capture that kind of mindset, but without the fear. We have to create rules to enable it. You've got the energy and support, financial support, technology out there. I think that's our job.
Amazing. We do have a program called our Insights program where 18 trusts are working together in partnership to do exactly what you've just said. But I've just got time for one final question. And do you know, sometimes when we look at healthcare, it can seem stacked high with difficulty. I know it still as a practicing clinician in Southend-on-Sea. And it can sometimes seem insurmountable. And one of the things I love about our innovators and entrepreneurs is they give me an injection of can-do and an injection of hope to keep battling on. I've been a clinician for 30 years now. What gives you hope for the future of the NHS, and why should our audience here have hope?
Well, the hope is you see things like we've seen today, albeit briefly. You see the energy, the intellect, the appetite to change things, the focus on improvement, the motivation. And also when we go out and about, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Bolton, and Bolton's not a glamorous place, is it? So apologies if anyone here is from Bolton, but the team there, in quite difficult circumstances, buildings that weren't great, they didn't have enough money, but there was a real spirit to try and change things, and they were changing things. They showed me a lot of improvements that they'd managed to make just in recent weeks in real adversity. That happens absolutely everywhere. It's happening everywhere now. We're just not doing it consistently and at the pace that we need to in the future. I think that's the bit that gives you hope. It can be overwhelming at times. There's an awful lot of negativity. We're working with big numbers. Everything feels very difficult. But we've got fantastic people doing wonderful things every day. We just need to amp it up for this next.
So I think that's true, isn't it? That amazing, committed people with fantastic values, every patient interaction, every time they do something, improving quality of care. And, we've got a workforce crisis. I think globally, I think there's going to be a 20% shortage of doctors by 2030, I was told yesterday, by the medical director of the GMC. How are we going to do that? We have to look after our workforce. We have to give them hope. And things like this, I think, show you, I don't pay them to be here. I didn't pay their travel expenses. They came to see you, to hear from you. They are your hope. They are our new hope for the future. I think they are.
Absolutely.
So James Mackey, thank you very much.
And firstly, someone that will be very familiar to you, Tamsin Holland-Brown, co-lead of the programme, but on this occasion, we're talking to you as an innovator. And hello, Delilah.
Hello.
So Tamsin, tell us about your innovation.
You're right, Viv. I was on the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme several years ago, maybe 6 or 7 now.
When she was a child.
And I'd been working, still work as a paediatrician in Cambridge. And I was seeing too many children who were struggling with reading, learning, sometimes speech and language difficulties. And from the most common condition, which is called glue ear, which is where children can get a temporary hearing loss. It's something that is seen in about 80% of children will have glue ear at least once. And for some it persists, like it did for Delilah. The NHS pathways are great. There's a little ear operation called a grommet operation that you can have, but it takes 5 clinicians. You need to see 5 healthcare professionals before you get to the grommet operation. And the waiting lists are long, and they're longer since COVID. There is a hearing aid that works really well, but the hearing aid is £3,000, so it's more expensive than the operation. And it works by bone conduction technology, which is great, but I couldn't get access to that for my patients. So I put together a bone conduction headset for £50 to help children who have this condition access learning, reading, speech and language. and an app which helps them to work on their developmental skills so that they don't fall behind. And Delilah, at 6 years old, was one of the first children to trial it.
Fantastic. So Delilah, what was life like when you were 6, if you can remember when you were 6, when you had your glue ear problem?
So I knew I had bad hearing because I was a really hard-working child, but I started being labelled as devious by my teachers because I would be doing the wrong sheet of work or I was following the wrong instructions, and I wanted to please the teachers so badly, but I just knew that it wasn't my fault. And one day I went home and I said to my mum, oh, there's going to be an activity and I'm going to be a grater and I'm going to speak into a microwave. As you can tell, my mum was very confused, and you probably are too. But it turned out that there was going to be a nativity. I would be playing a narrator and I'd be speaking into a microphone, which is a very different thing to what I said. And I was constantly tired from lip reading. But the second I got the headset, it was like I'd been swimming in water and then someone had pulled me out and I could hear clearly again. And my academic achievements started to fly, and I've managed to get an amazing academic and a performing arts scholarship to an amazing school. And I've been in 3 feature films and 2 West End shows. And none of this would have been possible.
Excuse me, 3 feature films, 2 West End shows, and do a bit of clinical entrepreneur bragging, and say, who was the star of one of your films?
Tom Hanks.
Do you know, there are all these people out there thinking, I'd love to be with Tom Hanks. So you've made them all desperately jealous. I know you're in The Cursed Child at the moment.
Oh, I finished that like a year ago, but yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
And would you have done that had you not had the lovely Tamsin and her bone conduction set?
Definitely not. My confidence was destroyed from before I had the headset, and having the headset built my confidence again, and I would never have gone to that audition, let alone actually filmed with Tom Hanks, if I wouldn't have had that confidence that was built up again by Tamsin and the headset.
Fantastic. You do realise we're all going to watch out for you on the red carpet now. She's going to be a superstar. Thank you so much. So can I now invite Ali Haddad to come on, and also Rebecca Hebben and her sister Fiona. So Ali, just tell me what your innovation is.
Sure. Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be with you all. I'm Ali, I'm a neurosurgical resident at Imperial College, and throughout my years of training in the NHS, I came to the realizations that we as surgeons still, despite the many, many years of technological advances, are still limited to dealing with 2D flat screen images, whereby we have to plan, mentally rehearse from MRI and CT scans, black and white images about how we're going to operate and also visualize the operation during intraoperative procedures on a patient that's in 3D in front of us. And especially when you're dealing with the most complex organ or the most complex object in the universe, the brain, your margins for error are very little. The other aspect is when you're trying to explain this to patients, it's very hard for them to understand. They're often scared, and you're trying to explain brain surgery to them. So it's about also, do they really understand the risks and what the recovery of that procedure is going to be? So what we do at XR Labs, and this is the primary reason I founded the company, was to take these 2 modalities of imaging that we deal with, CT and MRs, and turn them into these beautiful 3D holograms that are intuitive, that allow the surgeons to do patient-specific rehearsals for the first time ever, and then show it to the patients, and then take that into theater. And through using the most advanced AI and augmented reality technologies, we're enabling surgeons to see better, but by also allowing them to see better, we're building the next generation of what we call surgical intelligence.
Okay, so I'm now going to turn to Rebecca. So Rebecca, essentially this is a way of seeing your brain. So you saw your brain in front of you, is that right?
Yes, we was the first family to be invited to see what it looks like. I got ill when I was 18, with a condition called VHL, and I've had numerous operations through the years, and I've had the traditional way of operations on my head. So I didn't think there was any more when I had an operation last year, but I was right at the end of the thread, you could say, when Arthur came along and said that there's a new thing for me, which I never thought there was anything else. I thought, you know, with Mendoza, couldn't have the faith that it was going to work out for me. So with these goggles, it's just amazing. It gave me my life again. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today.
Fantastic. And you actually also saw it, didn't you?
My sister was a supporter.
And how was it, seeing your own sister's brain and explaining what was going to go on?
Scary, like the outcome for Becky's last operation wasn't good. We were told that it's extremely difficult operation. And then Ali and his invention come along, and it seemed like everyone had this new understanding of like where they were going to go in, what nerves they were going to miss, and it's hard to explain, but you're seeing somebody's brain and you can look underneath, above, like you can look. So a surgeon then can be more precise. You know, they know what they're missing before they've gone in. Before we've seen countless MRIs, and they're great.
And this gave you the big picture. Yeah. So how are you doing now?
Well, last year I didn't think I was going to make it. So, you know, I'm here now, breathing and shopping. So.
Breathing
my
and shopping. Yes.
If I can do shopping again, then.
Now I'm going to do a plea for you. So I saw you, and you need a bit of support when you're walking.
I do.
And you are using a buggy, not because there is nothing. You're 17 and a half, and you don't want to use the kind of older person's. Frame.
Yes.
And so you're using a buggy, and people keep worrying where you've left your baby.
Yeah, where's the baby gone?
Where's the baby?
Yeah.
So any of you entrepreneurs out there, we need a frame that works and looks
more modern.
Looks more modern for younger people. Thank you both so much.
That's okay.
Just one small thing I might add. We are enabling surgeons to do better surgeries. And Rebecca, since the age of 14, has had recurrent tumors at the base of her brain, which is essentially what controls everything. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Arthur, her surgeon, who's here in the audience today, because Becky was wheelchair bound and was not able to feed herself. And today she's walked, she's eating, she's talking with us. So.
Hooray! Thank you so much. So now let's move on to the last of our entrepreneurs. Nick de Pennington, come along, along with Liz Whittington. So, Nick, tell us, what is your invention?
Yes, well, so I'm Nick de Pennington, founder of Euphonia. Like Ali, I was actually a neurosurgeon for my entire resident career, so I CCT'd a few years ago. And as I sat in outpatients for about a decade, I thought we could do better. I thought that outpatients was not a good use of surgeons' time, it was not a good use of hospitals' resources, and it was definitely not a good use of patients' time. And so I thought we could automate that. And that's what we do at Euphonia. So we use AI to automate clinical visits, clinical conversations. We've done about 100,000 so far in the UK, and focus mainly on ophthalmology at the moment.
And tell me, what happened to you when you were referred for cataract surgery?
Well, yes, I had cataracts. I knew I had cataracts, which have been monitored. And when I went to the optician for my annual checkup, she said, right, I think they're bad enough to refer you. And while she was talking, she was clickety, clickety, click. And she said, we go to this particular clinic. We don't choose the local hospital. She said, there we are. It's all been done. The next day, the clinic phoned me, gave me an appointment, which luckily was at a weekend. It was on a Saturday. I had to ask a family member to take me. It took half a day to get there, have the appointment, get back.
And then you discovered it wasn't so simple.
While I was there, it wasn't the place, because they discovered I wasn't a straightforward case. And really, I should have been seen at hospital.
So, what would Dora have done?
Yeah, so Dora is our AI system. So Dora essentially allows patients to have a conversation that preempts them going into a hospital, and it does a couple of things. One is it collects all the information from the patient, it allows them to ask questions, but really importantly, and in Liz's case, it gives them a fair choice. And I think with the agenda for the NHS at the moment about how are we going to use the best use of resources across different providers, it essentially in the whole southeast region now is being used to give people a choice of provider. And so in Liz's case, I mean, she can explain she was able to choose the provider that suited her best.
And so Liz, are you now singing the praises of Dora?
Yeah, I've been through Dora, yes, and excellent, actually, very clear, explains everything in plain language, because after all, most of patients that have cataracts are of an older persuasion, as myself, and a lot of them are a bit, a bit worried about things. But it was all explained, all very clear. I had plenty of choice, and yeah, it was fine.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you both so much. Thank you both. So, it's that time. Now, the big bosses have gone, so it's all right. It's just us together. And now, it's the big pitch, the first part. So, clinical entrepreneurs, are you set and ready? Oh, that was a bit quiet. Okay, so the first up, and remember they're going to do 2 minutes, and when their time is up, you'll see a kind of clapping hand symbol, and that's also your signal to clap like mad, and that is the end of their pitch. Okay, so our very first one, and he's there already, Nick Gompertz.
Thank you. I've been an NHS doctor for 30 years, and now CEO and founder of EarSwitch. At EarSwitch, we believe the only site to do your medical monitoring is your ear. It's close to the brain, so likely more reliable, and also racially equitable site. We're doing that from an earbud. I was shocked that the device that we're using during COVID, that we're all reliant on, the finger oximeter, can pass medical regulations with a 4% error rate. That means, according to the NHS England guidelines, when I was seeing someone as a GP with a 93% measure, they went home. Whereas actually their measure could have been a dangerous 89% when they should have had oxygen and treatment. Even worse than that, that error is amplified in people with black skin and brown skin because this shines light through skin color. We don't think that's good enough. So in an EarSwitch, what we're doing is using an earbud with sensors that look at the inner ear canal, which is the same color for everybody, and obviously close to the brain, so likely to be more accurate. So our first product will be the Earmetrics oximeter to resolve the global need for racially equitable oximetry, but also improve the standard for everyone. But we also do respiratory rate, pulse rate, and new digital blood pressure biomarkers. So we want to do all your monitoring from the ear. We've been supported by the MHRI IDAP, or Breakthrough Programme, the pilot. We've also had UK government funding and also investment funding. We've had 16 patents granted. So if you're someone who wants to make a difference to how we monitor people to give better care, please come and talk to me. We do have a stand. If you're a funder, we've had lucky to have lots of funding from NHR and UKRI, but we need more, and investors. And if you're a regulator, let's tighten those regulations. It's unusual for an innovator to want tighter regulations. We need them now, so please join us. Thank you.
Thank you, terrific. So, whoop and holler for Funmi Vanessa Ullman.
Hello everyone. So today is World Sickle Cell Day. And 13 years ago, our newborn son was diagnosed with sickle cell, a life-threatening genetic blood disorder. Nothing can prepare you for that. There's no manual for parenting, and there's definitely no manual for parenting a child through pain, fear, and over 200 hospital admissions. There were nights I sat by his bedside, praying he would make it through to the next morning, and days that I masked my fear just to keep him smiling. Managing his health at home was exhausting, balancing medications, appointments, and school. But I realized something. Digital can play a huge part in transforming this experience. So I've spent my entire career working in technology, and I also run a charity for children with sickle cell. I saw the same struggles echoed in family after family, and it was clear we needed a tool built for us. More than 30% of child NHS admissions are due to chronic conditions, costing billions each year. And poor medication adherence alone drives 25% of pediatric emergency visits, wasting millions in avoidable care. And that's why we built the Eli app, a digital companion using AI, behavioral science, and gamified rewards to support children with chronic health conditions. And over the last 6 months, 95% of families said Eli helped their child stick to medication and hydration goals, and 97% of children said they felt more seen, more motivated, and more in control. And for clinicians, Eli offers real-time insights into symptoms, behaviors, and care patterns. To scale Eli and reach more children, we need funding and brand partners. So come and find us at the Eli stand just outside. We've got stories and a big mission to share, because no child should feel alone in their health journey.
Well done, well done. Right, now give it up for Andrew Darby-Smith. By the way, you don't have to jump off there. There's a...
We rely on NHS maternity services at the most important moments of our lives. Now, that was true for me when I became a first-time dad, and I know it's true for Steph, a first-time mum from Warwick. She told me that her pregnancy started very smoothly, but a serious complication meant that her little boy had to be born 9 weeks early. Now, I'm very happy to say that both Steph and her little boy Robin have gone on to live happy, healthy lives, but it's all because midwives listened to her when she said something was wrong, and they made her feel safe when she felt at her most vulnerable. That's great maternity care. It doesn't cost extra money, but it can sometimes, in a pressurized system, be overlooked. We've had multiple national reports that all conclude the way that we improve maternity care is by scaling on-the-job training for staff. But in my day job as an NHS anaesthetist on labour ward, I can see that's very hard to achieve. But we don't have to rely on the old ways of doing things. We bung loads of information into a one-day blitz of teaching and expect staff to remember that for the rest of the year. That's just not how human beings learn. We now have new technologies which mean we can do this better. That's why I launched Upskill Health. We're combining mobile AI and VR technologies to take the teaching we normally do in full days' worth of courses and break it down into bite-sized training that fits in the working day. We're working with real women like Steph who are sharing their stories as lived experience case studies. We've trained digital avatars with AI models so you can speak to Steph directly in your phone. We're launching to 200 midwives across 3 hospitals in Coventry and Warwickshire in the next 2 weeks, and we want to do the same across the UK. Locally represented women's stories for local staff. If you work in a trust, if you're a director of midwifery, if you want to be involved, come and find me. We want to work with you. Thank you.
Very good, well done. So, Isaiah Koje.
Hello everyone, I am Isaiah Koje, NHS obstetrician gynecologist and founder of EV3 Technologies. Pelvic organ prolapse is a condition that affects 50% of women 50 years and over. It steals their confidence, dignity, and it makes them self-conscious. Now, treatment options include surgery, but this has a 30% reoperation rate, or traditional pessaries such as this, which are uncomfortable and have side effects involved, and 40% of women end up discontinuing their use. I founded EV3 out of my experience with Katie, a 53-year-old mother of 3 who was fed up with these options. EV3 is a next-generation pessary that's self-manageable, reusable, and fits the unique anatomy of the woman. So far, we are trying to revolutionize this space. So far, the NHS would benefit from our device by reducing appointments, fewer surgical costs, and saving up to £300 million per annum by self-management. Now, we're ambitious. We've just won an Innovate UK Smart Grant. And I just won a JP Morgan Chase Pitching Event grant this morning. So, thank you. And we hope to be trial ready by March next year. What we are looking for, NHS champions, allies, pilot sites, and policy allies that will help us make the change that pelvic organ prolapse needs, because it's too undignified. I am a gynecologist in the femtech space. Who else do you want innovating in this area? Join me, and let's make pelvic organ prolapse dignified and as simple as putting on a pair of glasses and taking it back down. Thank you.
Fabulous stuff. And Connor Judge, it's all yours.
Imagine going to your GP with high blood pressure and walking out with the right treatment first time. No more trial and error. No more weeks of uncertainty. That's the future we're building with AI BP. Hypertension is the leading modifiable cause of premature death worldwide. Yet despite effective medications, only 1 in 3 people achieve blood pressure control. The current systems rely on overburdened clinicians, subjective judgments, and repeated visits. In short, the right decision isn't always made at the right time. We're developing an AI-powered clinical decision support system that learns from the world's best hypertension experts, trained on 14,000 patients from landmark trials like SPRINT and ACCORD, and validated across real-world data sets. This system predicts optimal treatment decisions and explains them in plain language for doctors and patients alike. With €1.1 million in support to date from the Health Research Board and Research Ireland, we've already built and internally validated the models. Now, with support from partnerships with GP software leaders, we're ready to pilot this in clinical practice, improving care and saving time. My name is Connor Judge. I'm a consultant nephrologist, an electronic and computer engineer, a PhD in epidemiology and biostats, and now senior lecturer in applied clinical data analytics. This innovation isn't just research, it's the first step in transforming hypertension care worldwide. We're now looking for early investors and partners to test AIBP in GP settings. If you believe in safer, smarter care, join us.
Terrific. Right. Now we have Nikki Allen.
Hello, my name is Nikki Allen and I am the CEO and founder of Haptivate, where we are enhancing lives through sensory innovation. I'm a paediatric physiotherapist and I've spent the last 9 years working in a special school that specialises in autism. What I discovered there are tiptoe walkers, so children who walk high up on their tiptoes and rarely place their heels down. This affects 2% of the general population, but actually affects 45% of autistic children. It can lead to musculoskeletal deformities, gait and balance problems, and chronic pain. Current treatments are invasive, ineffective, and expensive. Would you wear these? The children at Stanley Special School walk around barefoot rather than wearing them. You can't run or jump or hop in these. They're actually restrictive and prevent children from reaching their normal developmental milestones. 12 is the average age at which these children require surgery to lengthen the tendons at the back of their ankles. And the cost of this tendon lengthening surgery in the UK alone exceeds £26 million annually for autistic tiptoe walkers. There's a real market need for cost-effective and engaging solutions. Our solution is sensory reward technology that can be combined into the child's favourite shoe, an insole, or a dynamic splint. The sensory reward is delivered as the heel comes down and includes visual, vibratory, and audio rewards. It also has feedback to the clinicians as to how effective it's being. This creates a set of therapy that the children can actually interact with and enjoy. So far, we've achieved £227,000 worth of investment, and we're developing our MVP. If you can imagine a world in which children are empowered to do their own therapy while using their love of technology, still being able to run and jump and hop, negating the need for surgery, please come and speak to us. We'd love to talk to you. We're currently looking for support with commercialisation, and we're on stand 40. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, the running, jumping, hopping, nicking Alan and Akshay Kumar Campbell.
Hello, I'm Akshay Kumar Kamble, consultant neuroradiologist at University Hospital Coventry and co-founder of Imaging Beyond. Imagine you have been told that you have a brain tumor, and the only way to understand what kind of tumor it is to do biopsy. The procedure that carries risk of stroke, paralysis, and even death. Sometimes that brain biopsy may not be even possible, which means no diagnosis, no treatment. Now imagine if you could understand not only the type of tumor, but also its genetic mutation without making an incision on your brain. That's why we built Glioma AI. It is trained on over 700 patients from 12 institutions, encompassing a diverse population. Glioma AI can predict tumors' genetic makeup with 90% accuracy. This means safer and faster diagnosis, more personalized treatment, easier enrollment into clinical trials, fewer barriers to care, reducing healthcare inequalities. This isn't science fiction. This is the future of brain tumor diagnosis, and it is happening now. Survival rates for brain tumor haven't much improved significantly in the last few decades. Patients have poorest patient experience score. 1 in 3 of us will know someone affected by brain tumor. So if you want to transform their care, come and speak with us, come and collaborate with us. Let's give the people with brain tumor the best chance they have got in a long time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's Louise Thompson.
Thank you. Loneliness is a killer. It leads to an increased risk of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, dementia, and we've got to get ahead of it. And for me, that's personal. What happened for me, Louise Thompson, founder of My Folks, is that my parents got ill with dementia up in the northeast when I was managing a busy household. I was working in corporate world, senior leader there, and then my parents needed me up north. What that meant was that I couldn't be everywhere I needed to be. Everywhere I was, I needed to be elsewhere. And I felt like I was failing everybody. And I was exhausted. So I knew that I needed help. And the help that I needed, and that I would have paid for, I couldn't find. What I wanted was to be able to dispatch somebody that I trusted to my parents to provide practical and emotional support at the press of a button. And that's what My Folks is now. It exists. And today, we're having tea and cake with elderly people in their own homes, and they might not eat with anybody else for the rest of the week. What we're making is connection, but whilst we're making that connection, we're also making observations. We're looking around and seeing things that are dangers. And we use that with AI to create insights and recommendations to help them live in their own homes for longer. This also works really well as a hospital discharge solution, and it has the added benefit of getting local people into paid, purposeful work in their community. This is absolutely a radical and unique solution. After 18 months, we know that we're making a difference. So what I would say to you is, please help us out.
Terrific.
Trial us.
But that's it.
I'm going, trial us, commission us.
So we've got a double-hander now, Shulazu Nipensoni. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Delayed diagnosis of infectious diseases kills 8.7 million people every year. The population the size of the very room you're sitting in today will have perished in the 2 minutes that we give this talk because of a delay in diagnosis of infectious diseases.
Gold standard tests currently take days to return the result to find out which antibiotics to use. This is why 98% of the antibiotics that are currently prescribed are done so without real evidence basis. As a clinician and as a sepsis survivor, I've seen firsthand how difficult it is for doctors to make these tricky diagnoses without the right data, and patients are there to suffer.
We've simplified diagnosis of diseases and also sped it up. We can test for infectious diseases from the sample cartridge collection system itself. And all we do is change the cap. That is the only technical step. And we're able to get a result out in 10 minutes from any sort of sample, including urine, saliva, blood, and nasopharyngeal swabs.
Behind the scenes, this lab in a cab processes the sample, dispenses the sample, and then this device activates a very powerful laser to perform the world's fastest genetic test in just 10 minutes. We're the co-founders of RapidX Bio. I'm Dr. Shula Zhu, clinician and engineer.
I'm Nipun Sani. I'm a PhD in physics by training, and we are here to ask you if there are any investors in the audience that might be interested in funding the seed round for our company to take this forward. We're projecting hitting 1.2 million tests every year in the next 2 years. We are also happy to talk to some clinicians who want to seek impact on the same basis.
Please see us.
Majestic, fantastic. So, our very last one in this round, Dr. Francis Duffy, thank you so much.
Imagine you're lying in bed this morning and two strangers come into your room and start to remove your clothing. You'd be terrified and you believe you're going to be assaulted. Sadly, that's the experience of hundreds of thousands of people living with dementia every day. When care staff come in to offer support, the person with dementia doesn't understand what's happening, and when they're frightened and respond to defend themselves, their behaviour is labelled as challenging and aggressive. My name's Francis Duffy. I'm a consultant clinical psychologist, and I've been working in dementia care for 15 years. There are 1 million people living with dementia in the UK, 55 million worldwide, and numbers are expected to triple by 2050. I'm founder and CEO of 60 Dementia. It's an innovative, transformative online training platform for caregivers and health and care staff. When the people who offer support don't understand dementia, it means that someone living at home has to go into a care home. Someone living in a care home will be evicted from their care home, or they'll be prescribed psychotropic medications with significant side effects, or they'll have an unnecessary admission to hospital. That doesn't need to happen. So 6D is transforming dementia care with evidence-based, role-based training for carers. It helps them to understand dementia and respond in a way that helps the person to feel safe. It helps the person to live independently for as long as possible. It reduces caregiver stress. It reduces staff turnover and staff absence. We're rolling out our first training across the Integrated Care Board. So if you're interested in transforming dementia care within your organisation, then please come and speak to me in my stand or get in touch. Because people with dementia deserve better, and every one of us will be affected by dementia at some stage in our lives. Thank you.
Fantastic. So 10 brilliant entrepreneurs, 10 great ideas, 10 really significant clinical problems. But I'm going to turn over the next session, which is our last panel, over to the CEO of UCL Partners, Dr. Chris Lang, who you've already met. And you're going to introduce your panel, and it's about how clinical entrepreneurs have grown their ideas and benefited from support from multiple sources and are now going global.
Thank you, Vivian. So nice to be back. So this session is made in the UK, sold to the world. We're very interested in how clinical entrepreneurs who have founded in the UK and developed their solutions in the NHS, access international markets, because we want you guys to have international, global health impact, and we want you to grow your businesses. So we're very lucky to be joined by an august panel of successful entrepreneurs who have gone some way to achieving this, and they're going to be sharing their insights with us. So we're going to kick off by giving you all 30 seconds just to introduce yourselves and your solutions. And Nadine, I'm going to start with you, I'm afraid.
Hi everyone, great to meet you. My name is Nadine Hashash Haram. I'm a reconstructive plastic surgeon at Guy's and St. Thomas's and the lead for innovation there. And I'm the founder and CEO of a health tech company called Proximy, which is really a solution that's turning operating rooms into digitally connected smart operating rooms where we can connect experts all around the world, collect multimodal data from operating room systems and devices and machines, and activate real-time knowledge and insights that are going to change the way we deliver surgical care around the world. Do we talk about the international bit or not now?
Just a quick 30 seconds.
Hello everyone, my name is Benjamin Deldar. I am a medical doctor and co-founder, co-CEO of Deep Medical. Deep Medical, what we're doing is identifying patients that are likely to miss or cancel their appointments, and then using that technology to think about how do you drive better equitable access to care, be that through targeted messaging, better capacity management, or even organizing transport. So it's nice to meet you all.
Hi all, lovely to be here this afternoon. So I'm Dav, I'm a surgeon by training and now co-founder and CEO at Concentric Health, which is the market-leading digital consent application. It was born in cohort 2 of the program and is now being used by over 10,000 UK clinicians and supporting over 1.3 million patients a year to make better informed, supported decisions. And I'll pass it over.
Hi, my name is Ash. I'm an orthopedic surgeon by trade. I co-founded a company called MediShout. We're the first app in the world where hospital staff can report any operational problem, such as estates, facilities, IT, medical equipment. And we have some of the world's largest medical device companies plugged into our platform, such as Braun, Stryker, and Olympus. We've internationalized across UK, Ireland, and into the Nordics, and we're in 130 hospitals.
Wow. My name is Stephanie Campbell. I'm an optometrist and a vision scientist by training, and I founded a company called Occo Health. And what we've done is transformed the smartphone into a software medical device that allows any of you to measure your own vision if you were an ophthalmology patient with a chronic eye disease.
Great, thank you all. So I'm going to kick off first with you, Stephanie. You made the jump. Where did you end up first, and why did you end up there?
So we've made, I think, a significant failed jump in Germany. And now we're actually just launching in the US. So yes, which one do you want to hear about?
Why did you end up in the US?
We ended up in the US because there's a revenue model that makes sense in the US and where incentives are aligned. So essentially, what we do is we enable patients who've got chronic eye disease to self-monitor so that they can, you know, if their disease deteriorates, which it deteriorates between appointments rather than when the patient's sitting in your chair, and therefore, if they're monitoring during that time, they might have seen you maybe 2 weeks prior, and then begin to deteriorate. Well, we can catch that. They don't have to wait till their next appointment, and that's what we do. So that remote patient monitoring, there's a reimbursement for that in the US because of the insurance system. So you can get reimbursement codes. These are pre-existing codes if you fit the mold, which we do. That's what we're exploring in the US. And what's interesting is they also have chronic care management codes. So a combination of remote patient monitoring together with chronic care management, and because we're a medical device, we qualify, and that was the reason why. We thought that that was going to happen in Germany. Legislation had passed so that it could happen, but we couldn't get through the regulators. We haven't got this mechanism in the UK yet, and that's why we've focused in the US.
Great. Ash, you're next. Same question.
I guess when you're internationalizing, like a lot of things, it could be a push or a pull. And are you going to say, we're going to pick this market and we're going to try and push our product into it? Or can you try and find a way for you to be pulled? So for us, we were quite fortunate that we were pulled into Ireland and then the Nordics. And the way that happened is through partnerships. So we were working with medical device companies who had a presence in those markets. We were working with software companies, asset management companies like Medusa, who work with many hospitals across Europe. And their customers were saying, well, we've heard about you working with MediShout in the UK. Why can't we start using you in our country or in our region? So we started to get pulled. Then there's still lots of other challenges, which I'm sure that we'll come to. But that's the reason why we have gone into those markets at the moment.
Thank you. David.
Yeah, so my context coming into this panel is that we are now starting this journey in terms of going international. So we currently have team members in Australia and the Middle East, and are kind of exploring that. So I think probably part of this for me is not just where, but when. I think that's the big challenge for most kind of startups in these sort of times is it clearly brings distractions and challenges, and you have to work out on a day-by-day basis kind of when is the right time to explore international markets? Do you have the maturity in terms of your kind of home operation to go and do these other things? And then also, for us in terms of, I agree in terms of pull and push. The other thing I'd add to that is that, we would get often supported by governments often to have sort of briefing reports on different countries, and you get a bit of a feel for different countries in that context. But for me, going into those markets, having conversations with your kind of usual buyers, whoever they are, gives you a very, very quick feel of whether that market might be a good fit for you. For me, that is how similar do these conversations fit in those markets. We know we have product market fit in the UK. There are some markets where the conversations feel really similar. And you kind of get the feel, yeah, we've done it in the UK, we can probably do it here. And there's other conversations that feel as if you're talking, a totally different language, and it's totally gobbledygook. So for me, it's timing rather than necessarily exactly where, and then spending time in market and getting those kind of quick insights.
Thanks. Ben.
So for us, pretty early on, we did quite a lot of research into, what is the problem around no-shows and cancellations or in scheduling globally. And when we looked at that early on, we saw that out of every pound spent globally, about 50 pence of it is spent in the US healthcare system. And that waste in America is about 150 billion worth of waste. But then how are we as a British UK company going to tackle that market? So we decided early on to do to make strategic partnerships with people or corporations that were large American-led corporations. So we partnered with Cisco, we partnered with Uber, and we managed to leverage that relationship and that ability to have their sales teams that had those established sort of footprints to think about how do we land and expand in a market which was, as Steph says, incentivized in a different way, but a much more transparent way where you get paid for doing things, and then sort of landing and growing from there.
I'd echo everything the panelists have said. I might add a few comments, but just an offer first is, one of the other things I do is I run the NHS, well, it's the only NHS-backed venture fund called Meridian Health Ventures. It's 5 NHS hospitals, 2 US system hospitals, and a number of foundations. And what we do is we spend a lot of time helping companies think about when is the right time to go global, how should you go global, who should you partner with, how much funding do you need to do that. And because we have LPs in the US like Cedars-Sinai, Hartford Health, and others, they will help companies get on their accelerator to figure out early on how to access the US market, and they do that all as being part of the LP base. So if anyone who is interested, just go online to Meridian Health Ventures and reach out, we can help you. With my company, we're in 50 countries now, we're in over 800 hospitals, thousands and thousands and thousands of cases every year. We start off in the UK, and I think just to add to the point, it's the when and the how. We knew very early on that we wanted to be a global business. And the reason we took that decision early on is because you have to build your architecture to fit that. So if you're doing a real-time video communication stack with AI deployment and different data hosting and all in the cloud and edge AI and all the big buzzwords, you do need to think about your architecture pretty early on, because it's not one of those things you can re-engineer many, many times over. I'm sure we've all at least re-engineered once, if not twice, but it's not something you want to be doing on a yearly basis. So thinking about how you can spin up new local data centers, how you're going to get through the DPA, BAA, DIA, whichever each country's process is. Do I need to be locally hosted or not, like in Saudi Arabia? Those are things you have to be thinking about early on, even if you don't deploy commercial or go-to-market sources at the beginning. So that was the first thing we did and we thought about. And quite quickly, when we found product market fit, because frankly, we created the category, we went to the US and then Middle East as well. In terms of the how as well, is just thinking really thoughtfully about, have you got the right amount of capital and runway to do this? And have you got the right partners? Just saying I'm going to go to the US, I see it all the time with companies. They'll say, oh, I'm moving to New York now, and I'm going to start to work with Mount Sinai. It's like, great, like, have you got a plan? Like, how long do you need? Do you have a team? And it's not that simple. And so my advice would be really think about the cost of hiring in other countries, the HR laws, which in Germany are very, very different and difficult to other countries. Can you sustain it? Can you build the right team to be successful? Have you raised the right money? Do you have the right health system partners that are going to be your beta sites? And so it's possible, but really think through, because we've seen about 3 or 4 companies in our portfolio get burned pretty quickly going global. But I'll end by saying, if you get it right, it is magical. And with Proximi, we're connecting hospitals all around the world and working and partnering directly and indirectly through medical device companies, through strategics, through tech partners. And it is amazing to see how these technologies can really democratize access to care.
Fantastic. So we're back to 30 seconds, I'm afraid. So the UK government is here. If the UK government could do one thing to help clinical entrepreneurs generally scale in international markets, what would you ask them to do? I'll go to you, Nadine, first, if I may.
Look, I think they have a really important role to play in that, you do have a lot of these department-to-department trade visits. You have leadership-to-leadership visits that are happening to other countries. Do help set up, take your 5 burgeoning, fantastic digital health tech companies with you on those trips, those, PM to president meetings, and take those groups with you and help foster those meetings and those relationships on the ground for them. We've seen it be very successful in the past. We've also seen, Modi does it quite a lot. He'll take 10 Indian companies with him to every trip that he does, and he will make sure that they've got deals lined up and meetings lined up to have deal making. I'm not saying the UK doesn't do it. We do have the Department of Trade, but I think being a bit more intentional about the winners and trying to help them go through would be great.
Yeah, I would completely add to that. I think at the moment it requires, as the startups to push a lot and open the door and drive for that change. So it would be, better to see how we can start to use those sort of networks that are already established across the UK and globally. Yeah, I don't have much more to add than what Nadine's quite well articulated.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar to Nadine, but just in terms of an example. So a good example for that, from my experience, was going to South Korea as part of an Innovate UK visit with 8 digital health companies. In that week, we went to 10 leading South Korean hospitals. Each had the opportunity to kind of pitch to these places, but actually, because you're going to those hospitals and spending kind of half a day at those places, built relationships in a way that felt quite different to going to a trade show, going to a conference. And clearly, Dav emailing, contacting a South Korean hospital is not going to get anywhere, but coming under kind of UK government banner and Innovate UK banner, that sort of thing, meant that we could get those access. And so I totally agree. Like, it makes it so much easier to get that sort of access.
And I'll just add to that, I think when you internationalize, these healthcare systems might acknowledge you and they might admire you, but it doesn't mean they're going to accept you on day one. You have to basically rebuild your evidence base and prove that you can work in that healthcare system, just like you might have to do in the NHS when you go from one trust to another trust. So you have to be prepared that you have to do all of that work again at the beginning. And yeah, anything that can be done at a governmental level to introduce you to the relevant counterparts in these other healthcare systems might just speed things up. It's not going to be a silver bullet, but as we know in tech, if you can shortcut things and make things quicker, that's definitely a positive.
Great. Last comment from you.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that, to be honest with you. Benefited a lot from trade shows, and I think, my advice to you guys, rather than to government, would be to take advantage of those trade visits where you can, because not only do you meet potential customers, but you meet each other, and that's equally as valuable, quite frankly.
So thank you. It remains for us to congratulate these very inspiring entrepreneurs for their success, and thank you all for your contribution to the panel. And we're going back to Vivian.
Thank you. So it's our next 10 clinical entrepreneurs who are going to do their pitch. So I'm going to call up first Nick Sangala. It's over to you.
Hello. So, 1 in 10 people in the UK have chronic kidney disease. That's CKD. It robs people of their livelihoods and their lives. It costs the NHS £6 billion a year and drains the UK economy of approximately 400 million through lost productivity. And the tragedy is that we now have effective drugs that can defeat CKD. All we need to do is diagnose more people earlier and treat them in line with NICE guidelines. Unfortunately, the traditional health system is unable to deliver this need. My name's Nick Sangala, I'm a consultant nephrologist, and I live this reality every day. I built My Renal Care to solve this problem. My Renal Care transforms the entire CKD pathway, from diagnosis through to long-term management. It empowers patients to self-monitor from wherever they are, so that clinicians like me can deliver remote care from wherever we are. It perfectly aligns with Right Honourable Wes Streeting's ambitions of moving from analogue to digital, from treatment to prevention, and from hospital-based care to care in the community, literally in your hands at home. So here's my ask. If you're an NHS leader or commissioner looking to transform your renal services, please come and see us. We're downstairs. If you're an investor and you want to be part of a solution poised to enter a multi-billion-dollar global market, please come and see us. And finally, I think there are 3 nephrologists in the room, but if you're the one nephrologist in the room who has led the NHS to distinction, who is about to have a little bit more time on your hands, Sir Stephen Powitz, please come and talk to us. We'd love you to join our team. Thank you.
Great stuff. Well done. So Laura Tan, where are you?
Hello, I'm Laura. I'm a doctor, an NHS clinical entrepreneur, and the co-founder of AVID. And at AVID, we believe that healthcare has an engagement problem. So all too often, we know exactly what we should be doing for our health, but actually, there's established clinical best practice, we've got proven evidence-based and protocols, but actually adhering to it for the long term is where we all struggle. And as a result, costs spiral and outcomes deteriorate. So we built AVID to ultimately drive adherence to positive health actions. So from engaging in healthy behaviors all the way through to taking medication correctly when it's prescribed. And we do this through targeted clinical care programs wrapped around different diseases or medications. We use a combination of digital and human, so a gamified digital platform that engages and is scalable, and then a CQC-registered clinical service layered on top, where people engage with our clinicians and our health coaches to drive accountability, empathy, and clinical rigor. Our AI admin tools then superpower our clinical teams so they can spend their time on what matters most. From the moment you download the app, you're met with a friendly, human health coaching face who introduces you to your program, takes you through a structured process of one-to-one coaching, expert clinical content, data insights and tracking to drive an improvement in your specific targeted health outcome. We validated across a series of programs in NHS pilots, proving a retention of 91% at 12 weeks, NPS of 87, and loads of happy patients, as well as meaningful clinical outcomes. So we can drive, for example, in our Healthy Heart program, a 7.3% weight loss in just 12 weeks, no meds, only behavior. To accelerate our user volume and program breadth, we're currently working with pharmaceutical companies where our supportive programs wrap around a given therapeutic to boost the adherence whilst also improving patient outcomes and clinical outcomes. Our secret lies in the perfect balance of human and digital to drive engagement and retention beyond others and impact health in a clinically meaningful, scalable, and sustainable way. We also meet the regulatory bar, so we're clinical and not wellness, as well as having a broad program portfolio, so we're not just another point solution. We're now seeking further pharmaceutical partners and also NHS partners. Thank you very much.
just squeaked in. So, Tufal Hannan.
Every year, more than 1.5 billion toothpaste tubes end up in landfill, or worse, our oceans. Oral care products on the market today have remained unchanged for decades, and toothpaste given to hospital inpatients is no exception. In fact, this is what we currently hand out to our patients, a 50 milliliter tube. So imagine you're a patient for one day. You brush your teeth twice, maybe 3 times. And what happens to the rest? In fact, I'll tell you what happens to the rest. It goes straight in the bin. My name is Tufal, and I'm an A&E doctor. And alongside my co-founder, Amin, a dentist, we wanted to solve this problem. So we founded Nashes. So what is Nashes? Nashes is a toothpaste that comes in tablet form, which means 1 tablet, 1 use, no plastic, no waste, and no compromise. And yes, if you're asking, we've removed all the nasties and harmful ingredients without compromising on quality. Why now? So the NHS has pledged to become net zero by 2040, and that means changing even the smallest of things like toothpaste. So if you're an NHS trust or part of the supply chain and interested in transforming sustainable oral care, then come find me downstairs. And if you're not, and you want to make your oral routine more sustainable, then head to nashes.shop and get your products now. Though we are sold out, so as you can see, people are ready to change. The question is, are you?
And can you also solve the arguments between husband and wife about who puts the cap back on the toothpaste tube? Right, we're now going to move on to Davika Woods.
My nanny was the heart and soul of our family, so when dementia started to take away her memories, it didn't just affect her, it unraveled something in all of us. Today, there are nearly 1 million people living with dementia. This is due to rise to 120 million by 2050, and it's the leading cause of death for women in the UK. And behind every one of them is a family that is feeling heartbroken, let down by society, and confused about a system that's feeling alone. We don't just have a care crisis, we're forgetting those with the heartbeat of our societies. And yet we know what works. Cognitive stimulation therapy is the world's leading non-drug intervention recommended by NICE. It improves memory, delays cognitive decline by 4 to 6 months, boosts well-being, and sparks connection. But there are no headlines talking about the fact this is only reaching 31% of patients, as revealed by last year's dementia audit. CST is underutilized and under-delivered. And that's where our Class 1 medical device, Isla, comes in. Isla is a digital dementia care platform designed to make CST easier to deliver, simpler to scale. 180 plus clinically validated activities, 14 sessions. Think reminiscence, memory, music, physical games. It simply is magic. And when you have people saying, I remember, in these groups, there's no better feeling. We're turning evidence into action, helping the health and care sector bring CST into everyday life. And we've seen significant outcomes being approved across the care homes we're working with nationwide. We're ready to scale with an innovative approach for the NHS, so please come talk to us. And when you can delay cognitive decline by 6 months with no side effects and can benefit 85% of those diagnosed with dementia, we don't wait, we act now. Thank you.
Top job, Davika. Saran Mutia.
Hi, I'm Saran Muthaya. I'm a specialist pediatric physiotherapist with over 20 years of experience in the NHS. I'm also the founder of Enrich My Care, an AI-powered personalized health and remote care monitoring platform for children and young people with long-term conditions. So, why Enrich My Care? Let's take Katie. Katie is a 7-year-old child. Just imagine growing up in these current times itself is challenging. But Katie has autism, cerebral palsy, and epilepsy. Just imagine how difficult it is for her. Her parents have to carry out 5 different therapy plans every single day. And multiple appointments a month means she's regularly not able to go to school. Her parents and her teachers are finding it extremely challenging to support her. Katie's parents are now one among the 300 families who are now using Enrich My Care. Using the app, Katie's parents are able to capture rich and structured data in the form of daily observations, videos, and reports. Her clinical team is now able to use bespoke dashboards, which helps them have timely and actionable data that helps them deliver a much more proactive care. The service now sees an improvement of patient engagement from 55% to 92%, and this has helped them improve the clinical outcomes for these children. The clinicians are able to diagnose in one appointment instead of 3 appointments, saving them time. But more importantly, the patient waiting times have come down by 66%. This isn't about adding another IT system. It's about helping you make the most of one thing that we don't have enough of, and that's time. We are in stand number 33. If you want to know more about pediatric care and how you want to transform with us, please join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Natasha Devendralingam.
Hi, I'm Dr. Natasha Devendralingam, international expert in forensic radiology, co-founder of Anubix, and 6 years ago, I lost my father. Every single one of us is going to face this. We will all lose someone we love, and one day, each of us will die. Death is universal, yet the bereaved remain the silent sufferers of our society, the hidden vulnerable, navigating invasive, slow, outdated processes at the worst time of their lives. Autopsy has not fundamentally changed since the Renaissance. We're still cutting people open in an age where we can scan bodies in seconds. It is time to evolve. We need a national solution, and that is exactly what we deliver. We are the international experts in adult and pediatric postmortem imaging, period. But more than that, we lead with compassion, clarity, and the belief that death care is healthcare. We use postmortem CT to offer non-invasive, accurate, and a dignified alternative to autopsy, finding a cause of death in up to 90 to 95% of cases. In our flagship multi-award-winning South Manchester service, we've reduced autopsy by over 80% and cut wait times, turnaround times, from 3 months to just 3 days. So the question is, do you want to be part of something clinically excellent and radically human? Do you want to help rebuild the death landscape of this country? Because beyond the barricade is not just another slightly better system. It is a healed society. In transforming death, we restore dignity. And at Anubix, we aren't just a business, we're a movement. So walk with us, because no one else can do it like we can. So now exit stage left, and that's quite literally because our booth is just on the left on this floor. So if you need any more information, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I know how much that's needed. So now we have Dr. Angus Perry. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Angus Perry. I'm a GP and founder of generalpractice.ai. What if I told you that just by a modest improvement in your cardiorespiratory fitness, you could reduce your risk of dying by half? What if I told you that almost half of all dementia is preventable? Well, according to the Lancet Commission, just published last year, they identified 14 modifiable risk factors, which account for approximately 45% of all dementia. Are you surprised? So for me, I see this as an enormous opportunity because we are now starting to fully understand just the scope and magnitude that lifestyle modification has, not on just the treatment, but the prevention of chronic conditions. So how do we implement lifestyle modification effectively in the NHS? Well, there's a problem, and that's time. So I'm a GP. I have about 10, maybe 15 minutes of time with my patient, and you just don't have enough time. And this is why I've created generalpractice.ai. It is software to be used by all members of primary care, but the tools I'm most excited about is the ability to rapidly generate personalized management plans for patients with an emphasis on lifestyle modification. So how does it work? patient comes in, you identify what are their modifiable risk factors, you add it to the plan, you add local and national resources that are applicable to each risk factor. You can even add research papers that are relevant to the condition, summarized in accessible language. And just like that, puts it all together, you send it to the patient, and then they can interact with it. There's gamification, and there's even an app, a companion app called My Lifestyle Hub, where they can use and help execute the plan. So my ask to you today, if there are GPs here who want to trial the technology, we're ready. And if there are anyone else, then I'm happy to have a conversation if you're passionate about prevention. And I just want to say thank you to NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Programme for having me here to speak to you all today. Thank you to Vevolution, thank you for TES, and thank you for Deep Bridge Capital. Thank you.
Thank you. He's now going to sprint off the stage. And now we have Claire Nash.
Today, as well as it being Sickle Cell Day, it's actually Clean Air Day. But who here thinks it should be Clean Air Day every day? I don't want to breathe dirt. There's lots of hands going up, that's great. I don't want to breathe dirty air. And the reason that we all want clean air is really clear, isn't it? And it's not just in the low emission zones here in London and Birmingham. Because before our very first breath, right to our last, air pollution is impacting all of our health today. And we know the impact on every organ in the body. And in Birmingham, which is where my hospital is based, it's thought it's leading to around 1,000 premature deaths every year. And of course, that's putting a significant strain on our beloved NHS. 1 in 20 vehicles on the road today is healthcare related. Just let that sink in. It's a significant number of vehicles travelling collectively 9.5 billion miles a year. So just by delivering healthcare, we are impacting the planet as we absolutely love it. I'm a nurse by background, and I see the volumes of stuff that we buy every day, and of course they get delivered in one of those vehicles, and that's impacting, as I've already talked about. And 62% of our carbon footprint in the NHS is from our supply chains. My name is Claire. I'm co-founder of Critico Care, which is a tool that will allow us to get to net zero in the NHS much faster. My tool allows you to compare one supplier's product with another to make a comparison and choose the greenest, but also critically make sure that we're still delivering a quality of care with our products. My tool compares energy, waste, water, transport, lots of different aspects. And it's used in 7 trusts already in the UK. It's also been piloted in the USA, Canada, and Belgium. So investors, I'm looking for help to grow my database. There's 80,000 NHS suppliers, so there's a great opportunity to make money from them. Entrepreneurs, I'm happy to help you look at your green plans as well. And lastly, for any suppliers in the room, put the test. Thank you.
Just squeaked in. So, last but one, Dr. Mark Cox.
I met Jack in A&E when he was 12. After 9 months on a wait list, he showed up in crisis, having self-harmed. 1 in 5 children now have a mental illness. The economic cost, an estimated £1 trillion. I'm Dr. Mark Cox, co-founder of Orly, and after years on the front line, I've seen how today's support options are not only inaccessible and expensive, they're not designed for a digital-first generation. So we asked, what if support felt less like treatment and more like play? What if it was truly designed for children like Jack? At Orly, we're building mental health support and education that children actually want to use. Orly seamlessly connects families, schools, and healthcare into one proactive ecosystem to help children understand their inner world and succeed in the outer one. Children create their own emotional avatar and explore the Orlyverse. Think Tamagotchi with feelings. They play mindful mini-games and missions, and then practice the skills they've learned in real life through challenges. For parents, our smart companion builds confidence and connection through guided role-play and rituals. And for schools, a platform that makes it easy to monitor and improve student well-being with no extra workload. When children do struggle, our system will provide early warning signs and a gamified way to capture pre-diagnostic data for triage and assessment. We've secured 110,000 already from Bethnal Green Ventures and Innovate UK and completed an NHS developmental pilot. And then we're looking to launch a B2B license through schools whilst we build out evidence for larger contracts with local authority and the NHS. We are also looking for investors. We're at stand 39. We're hoping to raise around 600,000 to grow our team, take Orly from MVP to market ready, and to reach at least 10,000 families through 50 school contracts. Our ambition is to make mindful play mainstream and to stop kids like Jack falling through the cracks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The very last one, Lucretia Sesta.
Hello. 1 in 3 of you will die of a heart disease. And if you're a woman, your outcomes are worst. In fact, we have analyzed data that shows that across the NHS, women die twice more for valve conditions, which is a heart disease that should affect both sexes equally. This is in part due to late and misdiagnosis, and this happens because women present sex-specific disease differences which are not accounted for in diagnostic guidelines, which are based on data from men, and that the gold standard diagnostic tools don't pick up. So the current pathway doesn't work for half the population. So we have developed a tool that enables early diagnosis and accounts for sex-specific differences in disease presentation. It works like this. You can put it on a wall or hold it in your hand, and you can shine it at a patient from a distance, and in just 10 seconds, you can get an AI diagnosis of heart conditions. I developed this device when I was a PhD student working in photonics and quantum sensors, and I then worked in the NHS as an artificial intelligence clinical scientist. And my co-founder was a research consultant at Columbia University, and then he worked 7 years in the medtech industry. And both of us got Forbes 30 under 30 for science and healthcare. So this device enables to reduce health inequalities, increase access to healthcare, whilst simultaneously reducing cost and time to the NHS. Currently, we just got an Innovate UK grant for commercial feasibility testing, which allows us to run early-stage feasibility pilots. So we're interested, if anybody wants to be that test bed for our technology, we can sponsor a pilot, so please, we're downstairs, come and look for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you two, you've all had now 20 brilliant pitches. I hope that you're going to go and talk to all of those people if you've got a particular interest in what they're doing. And to conclude our event today, can I call up your co-leaders, Tony Young and Tamsin Holland-Brown.
How nice to see you all, and thank you so much for coming. I just had an email and Tamsin, a message on LinkedIn. I won't say the name of the individual, but a former Secretary of State for Health said, "I hope everything goes well, Tony. I remember very well speaking at something similar that you organised a few years ago. I think you're amazing." Isn't it great that our politicians, when they're out, even when they're out of office, still keep supporting us? I think that's really great. You are listened to.
Wow, what a day. What great pitches and panels. What amazing startups in the exhibition hall, and what great satellite sessions we've had. Tamsin and I have the privilege of leading the clinical entrepreneur, the patient entrepreneur, the crisis venture studios entrepreneur, and the dementia innovators program. And now we get to share our thoughts on the day and what we've seen, this year's cohort who've just come through, and what is coming in the future. Today, for the very first time, we have seen the combined resources of the National Institute for Health Research, the Department of Health and Social Care, NHS England, and the Office for Life Science, all brought together in one place to support translational research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. One team working together to transform the NHS and grow the life science industry in the UK. Wow. Who'd have thought that, right? We have heard so many things today. The challenges we face in healthcare can seem piled high with difficulty. But today, through our partners, innovators, and entrepreneurs, I hope you can see how we can rise with the occasion. We can disenthrall ourselves and bring new thinking and new action to transform healthcare and patient experience. There were over 1,400 of you registered to be here today, and I don't think there's ever been such a large gathering of healthcare and life science startups, innovators, and entrepreneurs anywhere in the world. There isn't another such group like you just down the road or in another country that are going to roll up their sleeves and transform healthcare. It's you. There is no one else. There's not another room. You're here. And our job across the NHS and government is to work with you in partnership to make that transformation in patient care and experience happen.
So over the last 9 years, clinicians have gained skills, knowledge, and experience in the startup world and in the entrepreneurial world. And they've stayed in the NHS. So it's retained staff, it's upskilled staff, and it's brought innovation into and from the front line. And as if that wasn't bold enough, the word entrepreneur was used, which had never been used in context of the NHS ever before. But you've heard the clinical entrepreneurs. They define what clinical entrepreneurship is. They bring the NHS values. They take an ethical and moral compass. They take social sustainability and equity and equality, and they make the word clinical entrepreneurship an accepted term. It is them that have done that. And now, for other clinical entrepreneurs, it's a badge of honor, but because they walk those paths. And by everyone having walked that path, they give confidence to the next clinical entrepreneur to walk the same path. The clinical entrepreneurs work using excellence, using dedication, success, and they give the program a good name. And a lot of the times in the NHS, we hear people talking about good enough, and that just isn't good enough for the clinical entrepreneurs. They expect excellence, they expect the best, and they're going to take us into the future. Cohort 8 was no exception. They worked so hard. They applied and reapplied for funding, and it takes a long time. They built services, they built devices, they started businesses, even that was entrepreneurial. They started charities, they started community interest companies, they started hybrid versions of the two of those things. They started ethical businesses as well as VC-backed businesses. They invested in each other and collaborated and launched books and took leadership roles and ran studies and published them and ran pilots, and they brought prevention and they brought reduced waiting lists, and they took their innovations globally. And as Stephen Powers said, one of the best things about the program was that it expanded. It wasn't just doctors, which is how it started. And one of the last pieces of that was the patient entrepreneurs, which have been brought on board in the last 2 years. So this is year 2 of the Patient Entrepreneur Program, and we want to say thank you to the patient entrepreneurs for being brave enough to bring your innovations in and to elevate the voice of patients and keep the patients central to innovation at all times. Thank you for bringing that depth and breadth and insight into entrepreneurship. Your ideas and leadership and leading by example is exactly what the program needed. Cohort 9, I hope you're excited. We are. Your applications were incredible. And we are also very excited by by the very first Dementia Innovators programme, working together with a charity, the Alzheimer's Society, to improve things for patients and carers.
So thank you, Tamsin. And now it's that moment that they have in the Oscars where we have to say thank you to a long list of people. So brace yourselves. Tamsin.
Well, we've come a long way in the last 8 to 9 years, and look at what's been built. You're all part of one of the largest communities in innovation in healthcare in the world, and we're transforming it. To make all of that happen, we're very lucky to have a lot of supporters, and support is very much needed. And so we want to take the opportunity to say thank you. And to start with, we have 250 cross-sector mentors who give their time for freely to the clinical entrepreneurs, and they're brilliant, and they definitely stop them from scoring some own goals.
At NHS England, our thanks have to go to, firstly, our colleagues in the workforce training and education team. And that's not just all the deans who look after postgraduate training across the country. It's all the teams that sit within those units. They have been supporting us since day one, and we wouldn't have been where we are without their support, and I'm extremely grateful to them. Also, the amazing team in the Innovation, Research and Life Science and Strategy Group at NHS England, particularly Christina Farrow, Alex Ganzana and Mei Teng, who have been tireless in their support of what we do. So many colleagues from what we call internally the IRLSS team have rolled up their sleeves and joined us today. So thanks to our market intelligence team, the innovation service and our research team. But communications is also really important. And we've had fantastic support from Anna Gamez and Andrew Maybe, and I think Andrew might be here today. If they weren't there helping fend off the fires when another clinical entrepreneur said something to a newspaper that they shouldn't, we probably wouldn't have survived. You cause so much trouble, it's unbelievable. We also have to say a big thank you to our NHS England commercial and financial colleagues who've supported our innovation work for many years, working behind the scenes to support us in the, in the knitting, in the bread and butter stuff of contracting and commissioning. And that's Nick Knight, Danny McCulloch, Alex Munn, Jackie Powell, Alex Crossley, Marilyn Skelton, Yusuf Abura, Dan Haig, Charlie Stevens, Vicky Galter, and all their teams.
And there are many sponsors and partners of the programme who provide a lot of enrichment for the clinical entrepreneurs. They provide expertise, they do a lot of mentoring, they do industry days, satellite sessions, and we're incredibly grateful. And the event today wouldn't happen without the support of our partners and sponsors at the Department of Health and Social Care, the HINS, the Health Innovation Networks, the NIA, NHS Innovation Accelerator, and the NHS Insights Programme. And also we have Wilson Sonsini, Fraser and Dieter, and InterSystems. Thank you.
So thank you for all your support. We've also developed international partnerships with Hirani in Northern Ireland. Joanne Rhodes, their chief exec, is here in the audience, with the Digital Health and Care Innovation Centre in Scotland, with the Clinical Innovation Hub at Cardiff University and the Life Science and Innovation Division of the Welsh Government, and the Health Innovation Hub in the Republic of Ireland. All contribute entrepreneurs to the programme.
The system leaders have always been crucial. With them, we can do anything that we set our minds to, but we need their support. And today we heard from Lucy Chappell, David Lawson, Ross Campion, Stella Vig, Sir Steve Powis, and Sir Jim Mackey. And we're very grateful for that level of support within the NHS.
I think really, with all their support, we can achieve whatever we set our minds to. I also have to thank the team at Anglia Ruskin University, to my Vice-Chancellor, Roderick Watkins, Yvonne Barnett, our Pro-Vice-Chancellor, Jackie Kelly, our Dean in the Health Faculty, and Barbara Piershanak, our Deputy Dean. The number of times I have to go to them for support, and they do everything they can to make things happen, so thank you.
There's one team who believes in the clinical entrepreneurs more than anyone else. And it is the team that is the foundation and the backbone to this programme. And it's the clinical entrepreneur team who run it out of Anglia Ruskin University. And that is the legend who has been here for the whole time with Tony at the outset, which is Polly Sullivan. What a leader. Yeah.
I think you should stand up, Polly, in case they don't know who you are.
Program manager Lucy Dentis. She doesn't stop.
Where's Lucy?
Jenny Petty, who is so kind and so helpful all the time. Bernardo Costa and Charlotte Mercer, who tirelessly answer emails, phone calls, keep us all to time, remind us, and help with the event organisation, keep the entire show on the road. They give their all to the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme, and actually none of this would have been achieved without all of them. So thank you to all of them. We have to just very, very quickly mention that there are some young people who volunteered today and helped the whole thing run smoothly, and they were young and starting out. And so we wanted to say thank you to them, and we're looking forward to what you do next.
Good, and a final thank you to the clinical entrepreneurs who stepped up and helped us to support and lead the programme, and all the wonderful pitchers and panellists that we have had today. Now, we do have a little surprise for all the people who pitched and for our panelists today too. Anglia Ruskin University have very kindly, I've looked at our startups and they tell me it's called merch, and I've never had any. So while Tamsin is finishing her lines off here, I'm going to nip round the back and show you what we've got for everyone who pitched today, because you were all wonderful. Why don't you cover off the rest of what I have to say while I go and get the merch? I'll be back.
The rest of the afternoon's about networking. There's a whole team. We're all a team here. We want the whole ecosystem to come together. So if you're an entrepreneur, make sure that you go up to someone you have not spoken to and ask them how they can help you. And to all the other people, go up to the entrepreneurs and ask them what you can do. Thank you for coming today. We needed you all to be here. It is the whole ecosystem that helps every single innovation get to the patients that need it. And Tony's got his merch.
Right, there we are. Let me put this down. Do you want to hold that? So, a clinical entrepreneur program embroidered t-shirt. And I was told I couldn't be an entrepreneur unless I had an entrepreneur hoodie. That's why you should volunteer to pitch at the end of your event. Or I should say, be on one of our panels. We have one for all of you. And as I say, very kindly donated by our university. Tamsin.
There's one last person we need to thank, and that is Viv Parry, the most wonderful host and compere today. And Viv, we're going to... Awesome.
It's been my great pleasure, and now is the time when we go out and celebrate. We've been celebrating all day, really. It's been magnificent, absolutely magnificent. The drinks are on us. That's something you'll rarely hear, but the drinks are on us this evening. So go down, have a great time, and thank you so much, all of you, for coming here on a meltingly hot day. Sitting here and just lapping everything up, even though you must be really uncomfortable. It's been a wonderful day. Thank you both. And finally, could we please thank these two?